Chapter 274. After the incident at the secret grounds of divine inscriptions, the transcendent powers of the Moon continent once again returned to their former transcendent powers. Not only that, the level of danger at the secret grounds of divine inscriptions this time around far surpassed all the previous ones. Within the secret grounds of divine inscriptions, many of the transcendent powers had fallen. According to those who survived, they only managed to walk out alive after the secret grounds of divine inscriptions had been destroyed. If not, they would have been trapped there forever. Undoubtedly, the Pill Emperor Hall had become the victor in the eyes of the crowd. Because only Zhan Chen, the chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, had obtained the legendary inheritance of the Ascendant. This was a topic of discussion for countless people. Zhan Chen was originally ranked number 11 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, and was only one rank away from entering the top 10. After receiving the inheritance this time around, the Pill Emperor Hall had placed even more importance on him. Many people were speculating when Zhan Chen would attempt to enter the top 10 of the Heavenly Fate rankings. To Zhan Chen, the difference of a single rank was extremely important. The meaning behind the top 10 and the top 11 was completely different. In the Pill Emperor Hall, Zhan Chen didn't seem to be excited at all. In fact, there was even a hint of sorrow on his face. Zhan Chen, since your fate is already determined, don't be sad. Everything will be gone with the wind. At this moment, Zhan Chen's master consoled him. However, Qin Yu's death was all because of my incompetence. I failed to protect her. Zhan Chen sighed. After which, a cold sword light erupted forth from his eyes. Qin Yu's death, half of the responsibility lies with that Grandmaster Divine Inscriptionist. If it weren't for him, Qin Yu wouldn't have died in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. I will personally kill that person. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. The killing intent in Zhan Chen's eyes wasn't fake at all. That was the killing intent he had towards Qin Wentian, an extremely intense killing intent. He originally wanted Qin Wentian to die. Not to mention the fact that Qin Wentian had witnessed his secret. Qin Wentian had severely injured him in the Great Hall of the Trial Grounds and thrown him out of the Great Hall. In the end, Qin Wentian had abandoned the legacy book and given it to them. Qin Wentian deserved to die. Abandon the item Qin Wentian had abandoned. He had to sacrifice half his life before he could snatch it away. Eventually, he returned to the Pill Emperor Hall safely. How could Qin Wentian not die? Since you have the heart, you will personally avenge Qin Yue. Kill this brat. Zhan Chen, as a heaven's chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, there was naturally no need for him to worry too much about matters of revenge. Zhan Chen would definitely be able to accomplish it. Master, Martial Uncle, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. At this moment, a beautiful maiden beside them spoke, causing Zhan Chen's gaze to land on her. Mo Qingqing, under the tutelage of her martial uncle, Luo He, had improved by leaps and bounds, regardless of cultivation or alchemy. Not only that, Mo Qingqing's martial uncle wouldn't be stingy in the slightest, as long as it was beneficial to her cultivation. Okay, you can leave first. Zhan Chen will send you off. Luo He nodded her head lightly. No need, Senior Zhan Chen still needs to cultivate, there's no need to waste time. Mo Qingqing's voice was as cold as ever, as cold as ever. After speaking, she bowed slightly to Luo He before departing alone. Bai Fei, who was following beside Mo Qingqing, cast a deep glance at Zhan Chen, her beautiful eyes flickering with a hint of emotion. Zhan Chen, the most outstanding young man in the Pill Emperor Hall below the Heavenly Dipper realm. He was always so cultured and elegant, approachable. However, Bai Fei knew that it was impossible for her and Zhan Chen to be together. In her eyes, Zhan Chen was a lofty existence, unreachable. In the past, there was Qin Yu, and now, there was Mo Qingqing. Bai Fei sighed in her heart as she chased after Mo Qingqing. Not long after, she caught up to her. Staring at the cold and beautiful back view of Mo Qingqing, Bai Fei's beautiful eyes flickered. Her lips moved, as though she wanted to say something, but in the end, no words came out. She knew that the divine inscriptionist Zhang Chen was referring to was none other than Qin Wentian. Zhang Chen wanted to kill Qin Wentian. If she were to tell Mo Qingqing that Qin Wentian had come to the moon continent, and had even entered the refinement grounds, how would Mo Qingqing react? However, she chose to remain silent. If Senior Zhang Chen killed Qin Wentian, wouldn't that mean that there would no longer be any possibility between him and Mo Qingqing? In the White Deer Institute, atop a pavilion, Bai Lui stared at the lake water in front of her, her heart filled with worry. A month had already passed, but Qin Wentian had yet to return. She was worried that Qin Wentian would be in danger. "You're thinking about that fellow again." At this moment, a low laughter drifted over. Bai Lui turned her gaze over, rolling her eyes at her brother as she asked, "What are you talking about? You still don't want to admit it? During these few days, you haven't been to the White Deer Cavern, and you haven't even cultivated." Bai Lu Jing stared at his sister as he laughed. "Even if your brother disappeared for a year and a half, you wouldn't be so worried. You're so powerful, what could possibly happen to you?" Bai Lui laughed. His cultivation base isn't high after all. Although he gave up on the inheritance scroll, if he really encountered those fellows, they would definitely not spare him. "Are you that unconfident in him?" Bai Lu Jing laughed. "You're too worried. You're right, that fellow has so many methods up his sleeves. Even if they wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be so easy." A relaxed smile appeared on Bai Lu Yi's face. Although she hadn't interacted with Qin Wentian for a long time, and his cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, that fellow had a unique charisma that caused people to feel that he was extraordinary. It wouldn't be so easy to deal with him. Zhang Chen, Yang Fan, Zhao Lai and the rest were all heaven's chosen, but when they fought for the inheritance, they were all chased out of the Great Hall by him. But now, our White Deer Institute is in trouble. "A loathsome fellow has appeared," Bai Lu Jing stated in a depressed tone, causing Bai Lu Yi to be stunned. "What happened to the White Deer Institute? You should still remember what the elders said about the White Deer Institute, right?" Bai Lu Jing asked, his words causing Bai Lu Yi's heart to tremble. Of course she knew, she had even discussed this matter with Qin Wentian back in the training grounds. Qin Wentian had the Azure Emperor token in his hands. He was a descendant of the Azure Emperor. "Of course," Bai Lu Yi replied. "A descendant from the D clan of the Azure Emperor has arrived, announcing that he wants to take over the White Deer Institute," Bai Lu Jing stated, his words causing Bai Lu Jing's beautiful eyes to freeze. The D clan of the Azure Emperor had arrived? Not only that, they wanted to take over the White Deer Institute. How could this be possible? What about Qin Wentian? Qin Wentian was the possessor of the Azure Emperor's token. Not only that, other than the possessor of the Azure Emperor's token, who else would know of the hidden Azure faction? Bai Lu Yi suddenly felt that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. "When did he arrive?" Bai Lu Yi asked. "Today. Not only that, he seems to be very clear about the current situation of our White Deer Institute. He even knows about you." A helpless smile could be seen on Bai Lu Jing's face. With regards to the Azure faction, it was just as Qin Wentian had guessed. Although they still followed the teachings of their ancestors, their feelings for the Azure faction had already faded. Especially so for the younger generation, which of them didn't have any feelings for the Azure faction? "He knows about me." Bai Lu Yi was dumbfounded. "That fellow is extremely arrogant. The moment he arrived, he said that he wanted the entire White Deer Institute to listen to his commands. He said that he would take control of the White Deer Institute, and in order to compensate us, he would marry you." Bai Lu Jing laughed speechlessly. He already had no feelings for the Azure faction, and now that he saw such a ridiculous person, how could he have any good feelings? He only felt that it was ridiculous. "Let's go take a look." Bai Lu Yi spoke, following Bai Lu Jing as they left the area, arriving at a courtyard in the White Deer Institute. There were several people gathered here, and the person in the lead wasn't an elder of the White Deer Institute. Instead, it was a young man clad in a long golden robe, exuding an aura of nobility. His countenance was filled with a faint trace of arrogance. Behind the young man, there was an old man quietly standing there, as though he didn't exist. However, it was precisely because of this that this old man was extraordinary. Upon seeing Bai Lui walking over, the young man's gaze swept over her. Her angelic countenance, fiery figure, she gave off an intense feeling of desire. The young man's eyes abruptly brightened as he laughed. "You must be Little E." Little E? Bai Lui was dumbfounded, staring at the young man speechlessly. Even with their relationship, Qin Wentian had never referred to her in such a manner. This was the first time they met, yet this young man referred to her as Little E. "Who might you be?" Bai Lui asked. "Di Cheng, I'm a direct descendant of the Azure faction, a direct descendant of the Azure Emperor." The young man's voice contained hints of arrogance. Bai Lui stared at him as she asked, "Do you have the Azure Emperor token?" This manor was located in the central region of the White Deer Institute, and the security here was extremely tight. Only core members of the institute were allowed to enter, hence Bai Lui didn't need to worry about her words leaking out. "The Azure Emperor token is temporarily not in my hands," Di Qing replied. He didn't expect Bai Lui to directly ask about the Azure Emperor token. "Since you don't have the Azure Emperor token, how can you talk about the inheritance of the Di clan?" Bai Lui coldly replied. "The Azure Emperor token is the symbol of the successor of the Azure Emperor." Bai Lui heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that Di Cheng was unable to take out the Azure Emperor token. Although she trusted Qin Wentian completely, the secret of the Azure faction wasn't known by many. She was afraid that if the young man could take out the Azure Emperor token, it would mean that Qin Wentian had lied to her. However, Di Cheng was unable to take out the Azure Emperor token. This indicated that the identity of the successor was extremely suspicious. Hee. Di Cheng laughed. "The Azure faction has experienced too many trials and tribulations up till now. The Azure Emperor token has yet to be found, but the Azure faction can no longer remain silent. I came here with the identity of a descendant of the Di clan, hoping that the White Deer Institute will follow the teachings of our ancestors and assist me in reviving the Azure faction." "Just because you say you are, it means you are," Bai Lui bluntly replied. "The hidden Azure faction has been hidden for many years, only those with the Azure Emperor token would know of it." "How did you know about the White Deer Institute?" Chapter 275. Back then, the Azure Emperor Palace was one of the strongest powers in Grand Xia, with experts as common as the clouds. Among them, not everyone had the surname Di. There were disciples, successors, and even loyal protectors and servants of the Azure Emperor. Together, they formed the Azure faction. After the destruction of the Azure Emperor Palace, those who were most loyal to the Azure Emperor silently left, concealing themselves in various locations in Grand Xia, concealing their identities and even changing their original surnames. However, they all had a single mission. If one day, there would be a person who could control the Azure Emperor Palace, that person would be the leader of the hidden factions of the Azure Emperor, allowing the Azure Emperor Palace to rise up once again. This was also the teachings of the White Deer Institute. But this wait was simply too long. For thousands of years, such a person had yet to appear. The inheritances of the hidden bloodlines grew longer and longer, and their loyalty to the Azure Emperor naturally grew weaker and weaker. Right now, the only thing binding them was the teachings of their ancestors. Since there was the Azure Emperor token, there would naturally be a person in charge of it. This person was none other than the Azure Emperor's foster son, as well as his personal disciple. He took after the Azure Emperor's surname, and his bloodline was the most direct line of descent. The mission of selecting a successor for the Azure Emperor also fell onto the shoulders of this bloodline. Maybe, this bloodline was the most loyal to the Azure Emperor. the person behind Di Cheng couldn't help but to berate, impudent. This person had been silent all this while, as though he didn't exist. But now that he had spoken, his tone was extremely imposing. Di Cheng laughed as he waved his hands. Little E is still young, there's no need to worry about it. Since you want to hear the truth, I'll tell you. Currently, the person in charge of the Azure Emperor token has been captured by the 9 Mystical Palace, and there's a possibility that they will force out the Azure Emperor token. At that time, all the hidden factions would be exposed, and the only thing waiting for you all would be destruction. This old man has also heard that only the person in charge of the Azure Emperor token would know of our whereabouts. Since you guys don't have the Azure Emperor token, how would you know? Can I understand that you have already gone against the teachings of your ancestors? At this moment, an elder from the White Deer Institute spoke. Although his tone was calm, his words were filled with sharpness and sharpness. I'll explain this to you later. Di Cheng smiled as he continued, the White Deer Institute is the first hidden faction I want to unify. I will definitely not mistreat the White Deer Institute. In the future, Little E will be my wife, and the White Deer Institute will become the leader of the Azure faction. Who said I want to be your wife? Bai Luizhen didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so shameless, acting as though he was doing her a favor. Di Cheng's eyes brightened as he watched Qin Wentian's actions. Let's not talk about this matter for now. Young Master Di Cheng, why don't you take a rest first? An elder spoke calmly, not wanting to continue the conversation. Knowing that it was impossible to take down the White Deer Institute in one go, Di Cheng nodded in agreement. After making arrangements for Di Cheng, the White Deer Institute naturally couldn't avoid a discussion. Most of the core members of White Deer Academy were gathered within the hall. The 4 patriarchs, 9 elders, the masters of the various halls, and the outstanding juniors of the direct line of descent were gathered here. The person in the lead was none other than Bai Luyi's great-grandfather, the current administrator of the White Deer Institute. This old man had white hair and a white beard, but he still had the spirit of a dragon and a tiger. What's your attitude towards this matter? The old man calmly stated. I don't agree. Our White Deer Institute is already a branch of power, why should we be controlled by others? Not only that, this person isn't even able to take out the Azure Emperor token. An elder from the White Deer Institute coldly stated. This matter needs to be discussed at length. After all, the ancestral teachings are still there. But the identity of this person is still worth investigating. I'll listen to elder brother. The last elder tapped on the armrest of his chair as he added, let's seek the opinions of the juniors. Bai Lui quietly observed the attitudes of the crowd. What made her surprised was that her great-grandfather and the other elders didn't seem to agree with the idea. Not to mention the juniors, the majority of them didn't seem to agree. Thinking of Qin Wentian, Bai Lui couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed like that fellow's path wouldn't be so smooth. Little E, what's your opinion? An elder asked Bai Lui. This elder was none other than her grandfather. Bai Lui pondered for a moment before replying, I don't know what the other elders and elders think about the current White Deer Institute. Do you wish for the White Deer Institute to remain like this, hiding within the Moon Continent, or do you wish for the Azure Emperor Palace to be able to stand tall in Grand Xia one day? If it's the former, there's no need for us to discuss this further. The various elders and elders froze for a moment before smiles appeared on their faces. We're already old, we can't even compare to Little Yi's words. Bai Lu Yi's great-grandfather laughed. That's right. First of all, what's our attitude? If there's someone who can allow us to stand tall in Grand Xia with the identity of the Azure Emperor Palace, this means that the strength of the Azure Emperor Palace wouldn't lose out to any of the major powers in Grand Xia. I have no objections, an elder stated. Bai Lui discovered that the majority of those who wished for the White Deer Institute to stand tall in Grand Xia with the identity of the Azure Emperor Palace. Only those who were more conservative still wished for the White Deer Institute to remain like this. Little E, you heard it yourself. Continue with your thoughts. Bai Lu Yi's great-grandfather looked at her as a gentle smile appeared on his face. Great-grandfather, it seems that everyone is unwilling to accept the current status of the White Deer Institute. Bai Lu Yi smiled. Ultimately, the Grand Xia Empire belongs to the transcendent powers. Although the White Deer Institute is extraordinary, the 4 transcendent powers of the Moon Continent are still able to suppress us, the old man stated. Since we're unwilling, let's find an opportunity. Bai Lu Yi nodded. You agree to submit to Di Cheng? The white-bearded old man asked in bewilderment. No, I believe that the successor of the Azure Emperor, as well as the one with the Azure Emperor token, would definitely be someone extraordinary. A sweet smile appeared on Bai Lu Yi's face, as a bright light flickered in her eyes. Di Cheng's appearance might not be a bad thing for Qin Wentian. At the very least, Di Cheng had shaken the peace of the White Deer Institute, causing them to have to weigh the pros and cons in their hearts. The white-bearded old man stared at Bai Lu Yi in bewilderment. Why was this last so confident in the successor of the Azure Emperor? However, Di Cheng said that the person in charge of the Azure Emperor token has been captured by the 9 Mystical Palace. In the future, the Azure Emperor token would fall into someone else's hands. Great-grandfather, do you believe his words? Bai Lu Yi asked, her words causing the old man to smile as he nodded. I don't. Alright, all of you can leave now. Remember, do not mention anything about the Azure faction to outsiders. If not, don't blame the clan for treating you coldly. The old man's voice was filled with authority. This matter was too serious. If news of it leaked out, the White Deer Institute would be in grave danger. The people here were all core members of the White Deer Institute, yet he still reminded them, worried that they wouldn't be able to keep their mouths shut. Bai Lu Yi and the rest departed. After that, although the people of the White Deer Institute were as warm to Di Cheng as before, they only feigned civility. They believed that Di Cheng might really be a descendant of the Di clan, or else he wouldn't have known so many secrets. However, Di Cheng could also tell that although the people of the White Deer Institute were warm and courteous to him, they didn't have the slightest intention of supporting him. In fact, he couldn't even meet with the elders of the White Deer Institute. However, the skin of this Di Cheng was truly thick enough. He continued to stay in the White Deer Institute, pestering Bai Lu Yi from time to time. This caused the people of the White Deer Institute to suspect that even if Di Cheng was a descendant of the Di clan, would the Di clan really dare to entrust their future to such a pompous character? Until one day, another young man arrived at the White Deer Institute. Only then did the White Deer Institute realize that they were wrong. This young man was named Di Feng. This young man was completely different from the pompous Di Cheng. He was calm and steady, and although his age wasn't too far apart from Di Cheng, he exuded an air of leadership, exuding an extraordinary aura. Not only that, the strength of this young man far surpassed Di Cheng. After his arrival, Di Cheng no longer dared to claim that he was the successor of the Di clan. This made the people of the White Deer Institute understand. Di Cheng was merely a scout, while Di Feng was the true successor of the Di clan. After comparing Di Feng and Di Cheng, the people of the White Deer Institute suddenly felt that Di Feng was too outstanding. Maybe, he could really lead the entire Azure faction. In the training grounds of the White Deer Institute, there were many spectators watching the 2 young men on the stage. These 2 were none other than Di Feng and Bai Lu Jing. Bai Lu Jing was at a disadvantage under Di Feng's attacks, retreating continuously. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the young man in front of him. You should have another name, right? Di Feng flicked his sleeves as he smiled at Bai Lu Jing. Brother Jing's strength is extraordinary. I'm sure you'll be able to advance a few ranks in the Heavenly Fate rankings. I do indeed have another name, Emperor Azure. Emperor Azure, Emperor Azure. Bai Lu Jing murmured as he laughed, so it's you. Only today did I finally understand the true meaning behind the name Emperor Azure. The old men by the side also had their eyes gleaming with sharpness. This young man was none other than Emperor Azure. Emperor Azure. Bai Lu-yi also had a look of shock on her face. The person ranked number 5 on the Heavenly Fate rankings was none other than Emperor Azure. Emperor Azure, ranked number 5 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, his name shook Grand Xia. However, how many people knew that his real name was Di Feng? Emperor Azure, Azure Emperor. So that's how it is, Bai Lu-yi's grandfather murmured. He also understood the meaning behind this name. However, even such a character like Emperor Azure hadn't obtained the Azure Emperor's inheritance or the Azure Emperor token. In truth, this was also one of Di Feng's regrets. It wasn't that he didn't have the ability, it was because of the environment he grew up in. From a young age, he was brought away by his master to roam the world, and when he returned, he was already at Yuanfu. However, Di Feng didn't care. Even if he didn't obtain the Azure Emperor token, he would still lead the Azure faction. Little E, do you think this young man can lead the Azure faction back to glory? Bai Lu-yi's grandfather smiled, causing Bai Lu-yi to be stunned. She suddenly had a thought. The people of the Di clan were too smart. First, they sent Di Cheng here, causing the White Deer Institute to have an extremely bad impression of him. After that, they sent the number 5 ranker, Di Feng, to appear. With such a contrast, it was very easy for people to acknowledge Di Feng. Bai Lu-yi didn't know how to reply, but at this moment, a figure walked over from afar. Miss E, Qin Wentian has returned. Bai Lu-yi's beautiful eyes froze for a moment before a smile appeared on her face. That fellow had finally returned. Chapter 276. After Qin Wentian obtained the ancient manual, he immersed himself in comprehending it. At the same time, he sensed the transformations in his body. This closed-door seclusion lasted for a total of 2 months, causing him to lose track of time. In these 2 months, he deeply felt the power of his bloodline. At the same time, he also experienced the profoundness of the ancient manual left behind by the Gold Element Celestial Lord. The Gold Element Celestial was truly an extraordinary character. Regardless of his attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions or his cultivation base, he was extremely powerful. In fact, Qin Wentian was thinking that although the other inheritance he left behind had been discarded by him, it should still be extremely powerful. However, Qin Wentian had no regrets. He believed in his intuition. If it wasn't for the fact that he had opened his third eye and personally witnessed that the golden-armored giants weren't puppets, he wouldn't have doubted the inheritance. But now that he saw the 9 golden-armored giants guarding the inheritance like puppets, and even sacrificing their lives to control the golden-armored giants, Qin Wentian couldn't help but doubt the authenticity of the ancient manual. Hence, he gave up. In these 2 months, his strength had risen by leaps and bounds. Regardless of his attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, the current him was more and more confident in himself. Most probably, it wouldn't be too long before he would be able to establish a foothold in the Moon continent. He wouldn't be like now, unable to do anything he wanted. This was also the feeling Qin Wentian had after coming to the Moon continent. That sense of urgency caused him to constantly think of ways to increase his strength. In truth, his cultivation base was already outstanding enough. He stepped onto the path of cultivation at the age of 16 and awakened his 3 astral souls, all originating from the 5th heavenly layer. Up until now, he had never met anyone who could match up to him. Stepping into Yuanfu before the age of 18, his name shook the entire Chu country. Not only that, he even managed to determine the ruler of the Chu country. This was an achievement that many would never be able to achieve in their entire lives. And now, he wasn't even 19 yet. His current cultivation base was at the 4th level of Yuanfu. During his closed-door seclusion, he broke through again, stepping into the 4th level of Yuanfu from the 3rd level. His Yuanfu pool grew stronger, and his insights into the Tao of martial Tao grew deeper. Not far away, a beautiful silhouette walked over. Although Bai Lu-yi wasn't as beautiful as Mo Qincheng, she gave off a sense of comfort when looking at her. She was clean, refreshing, pure, and sexy. Every time people saw her, their eyes would light up. "You rascal, you still know to come back." Bai Lui glared coquettishly at Qin Wentian. In front of Qin Wentian, she didn't have to feign coldness anymore. She was more and more casual, occasionally revealing her feminine side, adding to her charm. Qin Wentian stared at Bai Lui as a smile flashed across his face. "From your tone, why do I feel as though this is my home?" "In your dreams." Bai Lui glared at him. "How was your harvest this time around?" "I've gained a lot. Do you want to take a look at the Ascendant's ancient scroll?" Qin Wentian stared at Bai Lui with a teasing look in his eyes. And indeed, upon hearing his words, Bai Lui's beautiful eyes instantly lit up. The ancient scroll of the Ascendant, to a genius divine inscriptionist, was simply too attractive. If the people of the Moon continent were to learn of this, it would definitely cause many fourth-ranked grandmasters to go crazy over it. "Forget it, you were the one who snatched the inheritance, it should belong to you," Bai Lui replied after some thought. "I didn't say I would give it to you," Qin Wentian laughed, causing Bai Lui to glare at him fiercely. Was he joking with her? "I'll lend it to you for a few days, it won't affect my comprehension." Qin Wentian shrugged, causing Bai Lui's beautiful eyes to freeze. Staring at the teasing look on Qin Wentian's face, she involuntarily punched him in the chest. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't be stingy with Bai Lui. This beautiful young lady had used her own body to block an attack from Zhu Sha when they were fighting for the inheritance. "Where's Big Bro Chu Mang and Fatty?" Qin Wentian couldn't help but ask when he saw Little Rascal running over. "The two of them are currently in a frenzy, roaming all over the place to temper themselves. During these 2 months, they've already accumulated countless battle achievements in the Hell Arena." Bai Lui's words caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. Fatty finally wasn't lazy anymore. Lang Ming's death must have been a huge blow to him. In the vast Grand Xia Empire, experts were as common as the clouds. If one didn't have enough strength, they could only watch helplessly as the heart-wrenching things happened. If Qin Wentian had his current strength back then, the Lang clan wouldn't have been able to touch a single strand of hair on Lang Ming's head. Yen Tai, whom the Lang clan tried to curry favor with, would be easily killed by the current him. "Qin Wentian, come with me, I have something important to tell you." Bai Lui's countenance turned solemn as she brought Qin Wentian to a secret location. However, it wasn't the central region. Although Qin Wentian and Bai Lui had a good relationship, as long as Qin Wentian wasn't a core member of the White Deer Institute, he wouldn't be able to enter that place. Di Feng and Di Cheng were exceptions, because they knew the greatest secret of the White Deer Institute, the Azure faction. Although Qin Wentian also knew about it, before Qin Wentian decided to lay his cards on the table, Bai Lui naturally wouldn't tell the White Deer Institute on his behalf. It was up to Qin Wentian to make the decision himself. "What's the matter?" Qin Wentian couldn't help but ask when he saw Bai Lui pulling him to a secluded location. These few days, a group of people came to the White Deer Institute. One of them is named Di Feng, and he has another name, Emperor Azure. He's ranked number 5 on the Heavenly Fate rankings and is currently in the training grounds of the White Deer Institute. They are from the Di clan, a direct descendant of the Azure Emperor. Bai Lui's words instantly caused Qin Wentian's countenance to turn heavy. Direct descendant of the Azure Emperor, the Di clan. Qin Wentian instantly thought of the headmaster of the Emperor Star Academy, D.E. That old man should still be in the 9 Mystical Palace, right? Qin Wentian wondered if the 9 Mystical Palace had managed to kill him. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian's thirst for power grew even more intense. They know that the White Deer Institute is one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor. Their purpose in coming here is to gain control of the White Deer Institute and revive the Azure Emperor Palace, Bai Lui stated, her words causing many thoughts to appear in Qin Wentian's heart. After obtaining the Azure Emperor token, he knew that his path to reclaim the Azure faction wouldn't be smooth. Now that the Di clan had appeared, he couldn't help but wonder what their stance would be. If they knew that the Azure Emperor token was in his hands, what would their attitude be? Without the Azure Emperor token, do you think the White Deer Institute would approve of them? Qin Wentian asked in a heavy voice. These people have some tricks up their sleeves. First, they sent the Silk Pants Di Qing over, causing the White Deer Institute to have a bad impression of him. And after that, Di Feng appeared, causing the elders of the White Deer Institute to have a good impression of Di Feng. If they really saw hope in him, I think the White Deer Institute might really agree to their request. Bai Lui continued, as for their explanation regarding the Azure Emperor token, they said that the protector of the Azure Emperor token had been captured by the 9 Mystical Palace. They were worried that the secret of the Azure faction would be leaked, and this caused the White Deer Institute to change their plans. Qin Wentian contemplated for a moment after hearing Bai Luyi's words. This matter was a challenge to him, but at the same time, it was also an opportunity. The people from the Di clan had helped him break through the layers of paper, causing the White Deer Institute to have the intention of reviving the Azure Emperor Palace. Next, the question was who would be in charge of the Azure faction. After Senior De passed the Azure Emperor token to me, he was captured by the 9 Mystical Palace because of me. I believe that even in death, Senior De wouldn't divulge the secret of the Azure faction, Qin Wentian stated, his heart heavy. It seemed like he had no choice but to bring his plans forward. The White Deer Institute, the first battle he would have to succeed. What do you plan to do next? Bai Lui asked Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian smiled when he saw the seriousness in Bai Luyi's eyes. Don't worry, even if Di Feng from the Di clan fought with me, the victor would still be mine. So what if he was ranked number 5 on the Heavenly Fate rankings? Very soon, he would have the confidence to be on par with Di Feng. Not only that, if he was given more time, in a year or 2 at most, he would become the most dazzling ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings. This was his conviction, and also his ambition. Let's go, I'll impart the ancient scroll of the Ascendant to you. Qin Wentian laughed. Bai Lui also smiled as she stared at his handsome countenance. She believed that Qin Wentian would definitely win, no matter what challenges he had to face. Ranked number 11, Zhan Chen, number 18, Yang Fan, Zhao Lai, Hua Feng, and Qin Wentian, didn't they already snatch the inheritance right under their noses? So what if he was ranked number 5? In a place extremely far away from the Moon continent, there was an ancient city where humans and demonic beasts coexisted, the Celestial Lake Palace. At this moment, the palace mistress of the Celestial Lake Palace was respectfully standing in the middle of the great hall, gazing at the peerless beauty seated before her. Fairy Qingmei lazily laid there, her beautiful eyes flickering with a demonic light. Her jade-like hands wrapped on the chair as she asked in a low voice, "That old fellow, can't he stay idle any longer?" The news I received was that currently, the 2 major powers have already divided into 2 factions. No one is able to suppress the other, the palace mistress calmly replied. Who would have thought that even before they could rise up, there would already be a worm growing within them. Even before the Azure Emperor token was issued, they already wanted to seize power. Fairy Qingmei's smile was filled with a trace of coldness. Seems like that's what they're thinking. During these years, they've gradually grown stronger and stronger, with many geniuses emerging from their ranks. Right now, Di Feng has already arrived at the White Deer Institute in the Moon continent. The palace mistress of the Celestial Lake Palace seemed to be extremely familiar with the happenings in the Moon continent. How are things going with Qing and that little fellow? Will that lass's heart be moved? A gentle smile involuntarily appeared on Fairy Qingmei's face as she thought of Qing. She should be fine, Master should know of Qing's temperament. She's always cold and indifferent, it would be extremely difficult to make her enter the mortal world. The palace mistress bitterly smiled as she continued, as for that little fellow, he's not bad at all. Oh. Fairy Qingmei's gaze froze. It's rare for you to have such a high evaluation of him. Since this is the case, why don't you send some people out to take a look? Don't let that little fellow be too isolated. It's fine if nothing happens, but if there really is a conflict, at the very least, I should let them know my stance. Chapter 277. After Qin Wentian passed the scroll to Bai Lui immediately immersed herself in it, forgetting everything else. She had always been infatuated with divine inscriptions. Now that she saw the profound Tao of divine inscriptions of an ascendant, she was like Qin Wentian back then, unable to extricate herself. The gold element ascendant's understanding of divine inscriptions, as well as the various combinations of divine inscriptions, were far superior compared to the White Deer Institute. What made Bai Lui even more moved was that within the scroll, there were many powerful fourth-ranked divine inscriptions, fourth-ranked formations, fourth-ranked weaponsmithing techniques, and fourth-ranked puppetry. Sadly, she didn't have that level of attainment yet. She couldn't comprehend it, and could only comprehend it bit by bit. After Qin Wentian met with Chu Mang and the rest, he once again entered closed-door seclusion, staying with Bai Lui in the White Deer Cavern. Little Rascal naturally stayed by his side as well. In truth, Qin Wentian originally wanted to stay in the desert for a longer period of time. But when he thought of how worried Bai Lui and Fan Lu would be, he hurriedly returned. Now that there was a chance to cultivate together with Bai Lui, exchanging insights, it was a wonderful thing. However, Di Cheng's mood wasn't that wonderful. If the Di clan wanted to gain full control of the White Deer Institute, other than acknowledging them, they naturally had to maintain a good relationship with the Institute. And Di Feng, who had the potential to become the future leader of the Azure faction, was undoubtedly the most suitable person to do such a thing. If the White Deer Institute truly acknowledged him, they would naturally be willing to help him. In the world of cultivation, after benefits, relationships would naturally be the most important. As such, Di Feng had been staying in the White Deer Institute as a guest for the past few days. At the same time, he would visit the residences of the various elders and elders. Occasionally, he would interact with the younger generation as well, and the White Deer Institute's impression of Di Feng was getting better and better. Di Cheng, on the other hand, wasn't feeling too good. Those from the White Deer Institute didn't have a good impression of him. He was always idling around, and now that he heard that Bai Lui was cultivating with a young man, how could he be in a good mood? Is little E still in closed-door seclusion? At this moment, Di Cheng asked. That girl. Bai Lui's father shook his head. He knew that ever since Qin Wentian had returned, Bai Lui had been stuck together with him. A grown girl couldn't be kept at home. He didn't know what was going on, and naturally assumed that Bai Lui and Qin Wentian were together. However, he didn't object. After all, he was quite fond of Qin Wentian. At the very least, he was much better than Di Cheng. No matter what, they were both from the Di clan, how could there be such a huge disparity between Di Cheng and Di Feng? Father, it seems like your daughter is about to be abducted, Bai Lu Jing, who was standing at the side, laughed, as though he was intentionally speaking to Di Cheng. Sure enough, Di Cheng's expression changed slightly as he asked, Qin Wentian, who is he? How is he worthy of Xiao Yi? Di Cheng continued to address Bai Lui as little E. Bai Lui's father and Bai Lu Jing were extremely unhappy, but they couldn't be bothered to correct him. After all, he was a guest. It doesn't matter if he's worthy or not, as long as little E likes him. Bai Lu Jing intentionally provoked Di Cheng. And indeed, Di Cheng's countenance changed slightly. Master, Miss E, he's out. At this moment, a maid came to report. Bai Lui's father's eyes brightened as he laughed, that lass, she's finally willing to come out. I'll go take a walk first. Di Cheng bid his farewell, causing Bai Lui and Bai Lui to glance at each other. Bai Lui's father then turned to Bai Lu Jing, you should go take a look as well. Right. Bai Lu Jing nodded his head as he stood up and departed, heading in the direction of the White Deer Cavern. Not long after Qin Wentian and Bai Lui exited the White Deer Cavern, there were already so many people in front of them, causing them to feel somewhat depressed. "He's Di Cheng," Bai Lui whispered to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over, instantly seeing Di Cheng's cultivation base, the 5th level of Yuanfu. Based on Di Cheng's age, this cultivation base wasn't anything special. After which, Qin Wentian saw the 2 elders of the White Deer Institute also passing by. Qin Wentian wanted to see if he could see their cultivation bases, but to his dismay, Qin Wentian discovered that he couldn't. This made Qin Wentian understand that even after he opened his third eye, he could only see the cultivation bases of Yuanfu cultivators. The elders of the White Deer Institute should all be at the Heavenly Dipper realm, hence he couldn't see through them. "Little E, I've missed you so much these days." Di Cheng smiled at Bai Lui, causing Qin Wentian to be taken aback. This fellow was truly a genius. Qin Wentian now believed that the reason why the Di clan sent Di Cheng here first to give the White Deer Institute a bad impression wasn't because Di Cheng was faking it. Di Cheng was truly such a person. Bai Luyi's countenance changed when she heard Di Cheng's words. Seeing Qin Wentian winking at her, she couldn't help but feel even angrier. "Di Cheng, please call me by my name in the future," Bai Lui stated in a depressed tone. After which, she hooked her arm around Qin Wentian's, pulling Qin Wentian along. She glared at Qin Wentian viciously. "Who asked this bastard to make fun of her?" "Eh." Qin Wentian smiled bitterly. He was being used as a shield by Bai Lui. Noticing the gazes of the crowd, Qin Wentian could only smile bitterly. Right now, it was impossible for those from the White Deer Institute to not misunderstand. He and Bai Lui often cultivated together, and although there was nothing between them, those from the White Deer Institute wouldn't think so. "Qin Wentian." Di Cheng blocked Qin Wentian's path of retreat. His eyes narrowed as a smile appeared on his face, yet it gave off a sinister feeling. "You're blocking my way." Qin Wentian smiled as he looked at Di Cheng. "I know." Di Cheng nodded his head. "I heard that you're an unaffiliated cultivator with an average cultivation background. However, your attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions aren't bad, and you're a third-rank Divine Inscriptionist." Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. This Di Cheng was extremely clear about his background. And Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever. Although Divine Inscriptionists are respected by others, that's only because they have value. They can help others forge divine weapons and puppets. Even for a powerful Divine Inscriptionist, if he doesn't know how to forge divine weapons, his status will still be limited. After all, it's impossible to rely on divine inscriptions to battle. Ultimately, for cultivators, what matters most is one's cultivation base. Di Cheng slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian to be speechless. This fellow blocked his path and said so much. Was he trying to show how outstanding he was? But the problem was, this Di Cheng himself wasn't that outstanding. Naturally, whether he was outstanding or not depended on who he was compared to. Di Cheng knew that he didn't have the qualifications to compete with Di Feng. But as for the person in front of him, he definitely had to suppress him. In fact, although Di Cheng appeared to be a silk pants, he wasn't stupid. He knew why the Di clan had sent him here first, and he understood his mission. He also knew that he wanted to woo Bai Lui not only because of her beauty, but also because of her status. As long as he married her, his status in the White Deer Institute would be completely different. And if he succeeded, the Di clan would definitely be extremely satisfied with him. "Are you done?" Qin Wentian stared at Di Cheng, his tone indifferent. It was as though he didn't even place Di Cheng in his eyes. Such a situation caused the smile in Di Cheng's eyes to grow colder. "Did you not understand what I meant?" Qin Wentian saw that Di Cheng wasn't willing to let him off the hook, and his countenance also grew sharper. Two terrifying beams of light pierced into Di Cheng's eyes, and in an instant, Di Cheng felt a sense of impending doom. He involuntarily retreated 2 steps, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. "Let's go." Qin Wentian spoke to Bai Lui. Bai Lui was like a young girl, quietly hugging his arm. This was a blatant show of flaunting, wanting Di Qing to completely give up on her. Not far away, Bai Luyi's father and Bai Lu Jing both had bitter smiles on their faces as they witnessed this scene. Just like what Qin Wentian had predicted, the misunderstanding had deepened. Qin Wentian and Bai Lui lifted their feet, only to see Di Qing blocking their path once again. The aura of a 5th-level Yuanfu cultivator erupted forth. "Since you don't understand what I meant, let me tell you. Get the hell out of the White Deer Institute." Di Qing's aura grew even more domineering, suppressing Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's footsteps didn't stop. 2 beams of terrifying golden light shot out from his eyes, sweeping over Di Qing. Di Qing instantly felt an intense pain in his eyes, as though the pressure of death was pressing down on him. Qin Wentian's majesty was something that couldn't be profaned. Boom! A powerful force slammed into his mind, causing him to groan in pain. His face turned pale. Qin Wentian acted as though nothing had happened as he continued walking forwards. Yet another piercing gaze landed on Di Qing, causing his countenance to turn even paler. Di Qing coughed out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned even paler. Bzzz. Di Qing released his astral souls, as astral light flashed. His entire body was enveloped by a layer of mysterious energy as he glared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian had already arrived in front of him. Stretching out his palms, he slammed out with his palms. Instantly, terrifying divine inscriptions intertwined with each other, transforming into a terrifying great rock. Di Qing howled in rage as the claws of the great rock latched onto his chest. After which, he soared through the air and was flung out of the way. "Stop!" A cold voice rang out, only to see the silhouette of the old man behind Di Qing trembling as he landed on Di Qing's back. At the same time, he slammed out with his palms, destroying the great rock in the air. Di Qing supported the body of the old man as he stood up. Blood could still be seen at the corners of his mouth, and the robes around his chest were torn apart. His countenance was extremely grim. It's not impossible to battle using divine inscriptions. At the very least, I can kill as many as I want. So, don't use your ignorance to show off, Qin Wentian indifferently stated. Di Qing coughed out yet another mouthful of blood. Chapter 278. After Di Qing found out that Bai Lui and Qin Wentian had a close relationship, he inquired about Qin Wentian from the White Deer Institute. Those from the White Deer Institute were all extremely familiar with Qin Wentian, and Di Qing easily learned that Qin Wentian was a 3rd-ranked divine inscriptionist with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Yuanfu. Not only that, Qin Wentian didn't have any background, and only got acquainted with Bai Lui because of divine inscriptions. Hence, the conversation between Qin Wentian and Bai Lui came to light. Although divine inscriptionists were highly respected, they were only proficient in using divine inscriptions to forge weapons and formations. Very few divine inscriptionists could use divine inscriptions in combat. When both sides clashed, who would give them the time to inscribe divine inscriptions? However, Qin Wentian had used facts to tell them that there were indeed people who could use divine inscriptions in combat. And right now, there was one. Not only that, it was as easy as flipping a palm to deal with him. The eyes of Bai Lu Jing and Bai Lu Yi's father brightened, as they gained a clearer understanding of Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. The path of divine inscriptions was as difficult as the martial path. Even if one had talent, they would need a long period of time to immerse themselves in it. There were many peak-tier 3rd-ranked divine inscriptionists who were already at the peak of the Tao of divine inscriptions. For someone as young as Qin Wentian to have such attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions, to the extent that he could even use it in combat, he was definitely a demon-level genius. One could imagine that sooner or later, Qin Wentian would become a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. At that time, his status would be completely different. If he could become a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist before the age of 20, the weight of his achievements wouldn't be any less than the names on the heavenly fate rankings. At the very least, in the Moon continent, there had never been such a character. However, to advance from the third to the fourth level, was akin to advancing from Yuanfu to Heavenly Dipper. It was a huge hurdle that couldn't be easily overcome. At this moment, none of them noticed that not far away, an elder from the White Deer Institute had a brilliant glow in his eyes when he saw Qin Wentian's display of divine inscriptions. In the future, please don't come and harass little E. You are really not worthy. Qin Wentian stared at Di Cheng as he emotionlessly stated. Disregarding Di Cheng's status, he was only speaking from the point of view of Bai Lu Yi's friend. Bai Lu Yi was a pure and beautiful young lady, gentle and generous, with outstanding talent. Her man was definitely not someone like Di Cheng. Di Cheng was truly not qualified. Di Cheng's face alternated between green and white. What else could he do after being humiliated by Qin Wentian? Any words he said had lost their persuasiveness. As for hoping that the elders of the Di family would stand up for him, that was impossible. The Di family had come to the White Deer Institute to build a good relationship with them. If he couldn't even handle his own matters, why would the elders of the Di family bully a guest of the White Deer Institute, Qin Wentian? Di Cheng could only admit defeat. Qin Wentian and Bai Lu Yi lifted their feet, preparing to leave. But before they could take a few steps, a gust of cold wind gusted over. Abruptly, another silhouette appeared, blocking Qin Wentian and Bai Lu Yi's path. Upon seeing this silhouette, Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. What was going on today? Di Cheng blocked their path, and now, there was another person blocking their path. Not only that, the person standing in front of him was actually an elder of the White Deer Institute. Although he didn't know who this person was, he had seen him a few times before. Grandpa Dong, what's wrong? Bai Lu Yi froze as she stared at the old man in front of her. Grandpa Tong was her elder, of the same generation as her grandfather. He was one of the 9 elders of the White Deer Institute, and could be considered as someone with great authority in the institute. His attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions were extremely high, and he was a 4th-ranked Grandmaster as well as a 4th-ranked Divine Inscriptionist. Not only that, he was also a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Little brother Qin, I want to borrow something from you. Bai Lu Tong's eyes shone brightly as he stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian politely replied, what item does Senior want to borrow? The ancient scroll of the Gold Element Ascendant. As the sound of Bai Lu Tong's voice faded, Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed as he involuntarily turned his gaze onto Bai Lu Yi. Had the news of what happened in the secret realm already circulated out? Before this, he had heard from Bai Lu Yi that those from the transcendent powers had all kept their mouths shut. Nobody in the outside world knew what happened in the secret realm. At this moment, Bai Lu Yi was also stunned. She didn't expect that Bai Lu Tong would ask Qin Wentian for this. The ancient scroll of the Gold Element Ascendant was incomparably valuable. Qin Wentian had given it to her because their relationship was extraordinary, and because he trusted her. However, Bai Lu Tong and Qin Wentian didn't have any interactions at all. Asking for such a valuable item out of the blue, no one would be happy, including Qin Wentian. When Bai Lu Tong saw the expressions on their faces, he instantly understood that the ancient scroll of the Gold Element Ascendant was most probably in Qin Wentian's hands. I heard that little brother Qin had some good fortune in the secret realm and obtained the ancient scroll of the Gold Element Ascendant. I have some knowledge in the field of divine inscriptions, and would little brother Qin please lend it to me to take a look? Bai Lu Tong continued. A golden light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. What status did Bai Lu Tong have? How valuable was the ancient scroll of the Gold Element Ascendant? Although Bai Lu Tong said that he wanted to borrow it, in truth, it was a form of robbery. Senior must be joking. Junior's cultivation base is too low, how could I obtain the ancient scroll of the gold element ascendant in the secret realm? Qin Wentian stared into Bai Lu Tong's eyes as he casually laughed. Even if Bai Lu Tong knew, he wouldn't admit to it. The ancient scroll of the gold element ascendant had too many implications, and there was a high possibility that it would attract calamity. Regardless of whether others knew of it or not, he couldn't admit to it no matter what. Is that so? But the information I received shouldn't be wrong. Bai Lu Tong similarly stared at Qin Wentian as he laughed. Treasures could bring calamity to people's hearts. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Wentian had a good relationship with Bai Lu Yi and was a guest of the White Deer Institute, Bai Lu Tong wouldn't have wasted so much time talking nonsense with him and would have directly acted to snatch it away. Snatching treasures was a very common thing in the martial arts world. Senior must be mistaken. Qin Wentian continued laughing. At this moment, Bai Lu Yi and Bai Lu Jing definitely wouldn't leak the news out. Even if they did, the first person to receive the news wouldn't be Bai Lu Tong. In that case, it could only be those young men from the transcendent powers who intentionally leaked the news. Since this is the case, little brother Qin, can you allow me to inspect your interspatial ring? Bai Lu Tong stared at the interspatial ring on Qin Wentian's finger. Such words were already extremely presumptuous. Who didn't have their own secrets? The interspatial ring was Wu Xiu's foundation, how could he allow others to inspect it? Grandpa Tong, you're going too far, Bai Lu Yi retorted. Although Bai Lu Tong was an elder, it was still too much to be so overbearing. Little Yi, this matter has nothing to do with you, Bai Lu Tong interjected. If it wasn't for Bai Lu Yi, he wouldn't have been so polite to Qin Wentian. You actually think that this has nothing to do with me? Bai Lu Yi's voice was filled with mockery. Her hand was still holding on to Qin Wentian's arm. You should understand the importance of the ancient scroll. Now that it's right in front of me, Grandpa Tong has to obtain it no matter what. Bai Lu Tong stared straight into Bai Lu Yi's eyes as he spoke with a voice that could sever nails and sever iron. Bai Lu Tong, enough. At this moment, a silhouette walked over from afar. It was none other than the large-eyed elder whom Qin Wentian had met before. Bai Lu Tong's countenance didn't change when he saw the large-eyed elder. As a divine inscriptionist, the ancient scroll of the Ascendant was right in front of him. Such temptation was simply irresistible. Grand Elder. I've said enough. The large-eyed elder reprimanded. Don't forget, not long ago, Qin Wentian was still fighting for our White Deer Institute's ranking in the refinement grounds. Humph, Bai Lu Tong flicked his sleeves and departed. Evidently, he wouldn't let this matter rest so easily. Many thanks, Grand Elder. Qin Wentian clasped his hands to the large-eyed elder. You are a guest of the White Deer Institute, this is something I should do. If I've offended you in any way, please don't take it to heart, the large-eyed elder replied. After which, he turned to Bai Lu Yi, little Yi, take good care of little brother Qin. Bai Lu Yi nodded her head in agreement, before leading Qin Wentian away. Qin Wentian once again returned to the grassy area behind the mountain. This place was quiet and tranquil, with a gentle breeze caressing his face, causing him to feel a sense of tranquility. Qin Wentian sat on the ground, staring at little rascal's snow-white body as a smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Stretching out his right hand, a sharp sword light appeared in his left hand, slicing through his palm, causing fresh blood to drip down. Little rascal, open your mouth, Qin Wentian spoke to little rascal. Yeah. Little rascal shook its head, an expression of extreme reluctance could be seen in its adorable eyes, as though it was angrily glaring at Qin Wentian. Back then when you followed me, you must have sensed my aura when you met me. I know that my blood is useful to you, and even if I lose a bit of blood, there won't be any side effects. I'll replenish it very quickly. Don't worry. Qin Wentian knew that one of his bloodlines was the terrifying demonic blood, and was extremely useful to demonic beasts. Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, Little Rascal opened its mouth. Be good. Qin Wentian dripped a drop of blood into Little Rascal's mouth, and indeed, an instant later, a golden light flickered in its eyes as it ran to the side to sleep. Someone might have intentionally leaked the news, aren't you worried at all? Bai Lu stared at the relaxed expression on Qin Wentian's face. Bai Lu Tong intercepting Qin Wentian had caused her to feel a sense of pressure. Even an elder of the Bai Lu Academy felt this way, let alone an outsider. Treasures bring calamity to people's hearts, what's the use of worrying? The only thing I can do is to grow stronger. Qin Wentian mumbled. Bai Lu nodded her head, you're right, although the predicament you're in might seem complicated, it's all because you're still too young, and your strength isn't strong enough. What did you say? Qin Wentian's eyes abruptly lit up, staring at Qin Wentian. Bai Lu stared at the expression on Qin Wentian's face, bewilderment could be seen on her face. Qin Wentian didn't seem like someone who would get angry, right? You're still too young, and your strength isn't strong enough. If not, if you could intimidate them, you wouldn't be in this predicament today, Bai Lu repeated. The previous sentence. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. Although the predicament you're in might seem complicated, it's all about simplicity, Bai Lu murmured, not understanding Qin Wentian's meaning. Yes, although the predicament you're in might seem complicated, it's all about simplicity. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath, feeling enlightened. He inclined his head, feeling the cool breeze blowing against his face, as he felt a sense of enlightenment. From simplicity to complexity, that's refinement, from complexity to simplicity, that's comprehension, Qin Wentian mumbled. Bai Lu's beautiful eyes flickered, she was completely at a loss. Only to see Qin Wentian squatting down, his palms slashing out in front of him. Instantly, a straight line streaked through the air, containing a surge of energy within it. Bai Lu stared at the streak of light, her heart filled with bewilderment. She walked forward and similarly squatted down, infusing a strand of astral energy into it. Instantly, a terrifying sharpness gushed forth as a beam of sword light pierced through the air, startling Bai Lu so much that she fell to the ground. Her beautiful eyes stared in shock at Qin Wentian as she stared at him. You broke through. Bai Lu's heart trembled, her voice filled with excitement. Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head, exuding a carefree air. The confidence radiating from him grew even stronger. Chapter 279. Bai Lu's heart pounded wildly, her beautiful eyes unblinkingly fixed on Qin Wentian. Fourth level. Bai Lu's sexy lips twitched, her voice trembling slightly. In the Moon continent, fourth-ranked inscriptionists were at least in their 40s or 50s, and there were even some who were over 100 years old. These dazzling geniuses preferred to spend most of their time on the path of cultivation, and hence, there weren't that many demon-level inscriptionists. Qin Wentian was definitely one of a kind. He already had extraordinary attainments in the path of cultivation, and his talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions was even more monstrous. Not yet. Qin Wentian laughed. Bai Lu lightly patted her chest upon hearing his words. She didn't know how seductive this action was to men. Then why are you trying to scare me? Bai Lu glared at Qin Wentian. What grade of divine inscription is this? Qin Wentian laughed as he pointed to the inscription that appeared to be a straight line, but was actually imbued with a powerful sword might. Third-ranked. Bai Lu stared at Qin Wentian. Although he hadn't broken through to the fourth-ranked inscriptionist realm, the fact that he had such an achievement was already an astonishing feat. How many people could inscribe third-ranked inscriptions with just a lift of their hands? Even fourth-ranked inscriptionists couldn't do so. Inscribing third-ranked inscriptions with just a lift of your hands is indeed a major breakthrough. Bai Lu smiled. You've reminded me, from complexity to simplicity. Qin Wentian laughed. Before this, from the simplest divine inscription all the way up to the third level, the process of inscribing the divine inscriptions from the simplest to the complex. One stroke at a time, and more strokes at the end, the divine inscriptions would intertwine with each other, forming a brand new divine inscription. But now, if I want to step into the fourth level, the difficulty of inscribing a fourth-level divine inscription would be unimaginable. But of course, this is a stage that all divine inscriptionists have to go through. Isn't it the same for all divine inscriptionists? The inscribing of divine inscriptions is already exceedingly difficult. This is also the reason why so many geniuses are willing to cultivate. Although fourth-ranked inscriptionists are equivalent to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, it's an undeniable fact that Heavenly Dipper sovereigns can easily kill fourth-ranked inscriptionists. Others wouldn't wait for you to slowly inscribe fourth-ranked inscriptions. Qin Wentian naturally understood this logic. This was also the reason Di Qing used to humiliate him. If not, with his attainments in the Tao of inscriptions at the peak of the third-ranked, he was already equivalent to someone at the peak of Yuanfu. Martial Tao and divine inscriptions couldn't be compared directly. However, this wouldn't affect the respect of powerful divine inscriptionists. A fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist meant that they had the ability to inscribe fourth-ranked formations and forge fourth-ranked divine weapons. As such, there would be many people who would seek help from them, including Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. On the path of martial Tao, there are countless transformations. Everyone has their own methods of cultivation, and the Tao of divine inscriptions is the same as well. Others have their own methods of cultivation, but I have my own philosophy. From complexity to simplicity, this is what I've comprehended. Although I haven't stepped into the fourth-ranked divine inscriptions yet, it's only a matter of time before I succeed. Qin Wentian smiled. His path in the Tao of divine inscriptions was closely related to the spirit refinement method he cultivated. The spirit refinement method borrowed the power of divine inscriptions to condense divine energy. For the first level of the spirit refinement method, one would be able to condense any first-ranked divine energy in an instant. For the second level of the spirit refinement method, one would be able to condense any second-ranked divine energy in an instant. Currently, although Qin Wentian hadn't reached the level where he could condense any third-ranked divine energy in an instant, he could at least condense some simple third-ranked divine energy in an instant. This indicated that his spirit refinement method had already reached the third level of the spirit refinement method, and was only a sliver away from the perfection boundary. The spirit refinement method was the foundation of his current attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. Does this mean that you'll be able to step into the fourth rank soon? Since I've comprehended it, the fourth-ranked divine inscriptions is only a matter of time. With a single thought, it shouldn't be too difficult for me to break through to the fourth-ranked. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Bai Lu Yi's heart to palpitate once more. A 19-year-old fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. Just thinking about it caused her heart to thump wildly. I have to go into closed-door seclusion again. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Although he valued the martial path more than the Tao of divine inscriptions, the Tao of divine inscriptions would allow him to gain the recognition of the White Deer Institute within a short period of time. Hence, he could only choose to break through to the fourth-ranked divine inscriptions first. In that case, even though he wasn't even 19 years of age, his status wouldn't be inferior to many of the heavenly rankers on the heavenly fate rankings. The White Deer Institute would also view him in a new light, valuing him from the bottom of their hearts. Okay, do your best in closed-door seclusion. You must definitely break through, okay? Bai Lu Yi raised her dainty fist to Qin Wentian, her innocent smile exceptionally beautiful. As long as you step into the fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist realm, the weight of the Azure Emperor medallion will be even greater. Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head. The weight of the Azure Emperor medallion from a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist, and that of a fourth-level Yuanfu cultivator, were on two completely different levels. Bai Lu Yi lifted her hands and clenched them into fists. Qin Wentian, upon seeing her actions, did the same as well. After which, their fists lightly bumped into each other as they exchanged a smile. After which, Bai Lu Yi departed. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath as he sat down cross-legged. Time was of the essence. He had to take out the Azure Emperor medallion before the White Deer Institute fully recognized Di Feng. If not, once the faction represented by Di Feng gained the support of the White Deer Institute, everything would be too late. In the quiet back mountain, the grass was lush and green. Sunlight, rain and dew, as well as a light breeze, nourished the soil. A young man sat there quietly, as though he was isolated from the rest of the world. Nothing could disturb his heart. Beside the young man, a snow-white puppy was sitting cross-legged like the young man, looking extremely adorable. However, what was even more shocking was that every time night fell, the snow-white puppy would quietly lie down on the ground. From the heavens above, starlight would cascade into its body, causing its body to glow with a golden light. During the day, the puppy would get up and run around, occasionally sticking out its tongue and licking the pants of the young man. It was as though the young man was its kin. Chu Mang and Fan Lu had always been active in the various locations of the Moon Continent. The Hell Arena had become a training ground for them, and there were times when they would meet with ruthless opponents, causing them to be in a life-or-death situation. However, as they continued to temper themselves, their combat prowess grew stronger and stronger. Chu Mang's cultivation base had long stepped into the 6th level of Yuanfu, while Fan Lu had already stepped into the 4th level of Yuanfu. Chu Mang and Fan Lu would often spar against each other. Although Fan Li's cultivation base was inferior to Chu Mang's, the power of his bloodline had grown stronger and stronger. Hence, he was able to spar against Chu Mang, and in addition to the fact that both of them were proficient in archery, they would often spar against each other. The Moon Continent was indeed much more interesting compared to a small country like Chu. Many things happened in the Moon Continent during this period of time. There was news that a young man named Qin Wentian had entered the secret grounds of divine inscriptions together with the star-seizing manner, and under a stroke of good fortune, he managed to obtain the ancient scroll of the Ascendant of the Ascendant. As this news circulated, it instantly caused a huge wave of commotion. Many powerful 4th-ranked grandmasters all had their own ideas. The Gold Element Ascendant was a legendary expert, and he was also a terrifying 5th-ranked grandmaster. One could very well imagine how attractive the ancient scroll of divine inscriptions he inherited was to 4th-ranked grandmasters. After which, when they found out that Qin Wentian was in the White Deer Institute, many of them were disappointed. The White Deer Institute was a major power that was extremely proficient in the Tao of divine inscriptions. Since Qin Wentian was in the White Deer Institute, the ancient scroll of divine inscriptions must have already fallen into their hands. After their investigations, they discovered that Qin Wentian had never stepped out of the White Deer Institute. It was very likely that he was under house arrest. And while the gazes of many in the Moon Continent were on Qin Wentian, he was still in the back mountains of the White Deer Institute. Today, in the White Deer Institute, Bailu Yu and 2 other young men were heading towards the back mountains. However, at the foot of the mountain, they were obstructed by Bailu Yi. "Little Yi, what do you mean by this?" Bailu Yu spoke to Bailu Yi, his countenance filled with unhappiness. "Uncle Yu, I know what you are doing. He's currently in closed-door seclusion, it's not a good time to disturb him." Bailu Yi stared at Bailu Yu. Bailu Yu was the eldest son of Bailu Tong and had some attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. However, his attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions weren't very high. "Since when did the back mountains of my White Deer Institute become occupied by an outsider? Why can't I go there?" Bailu Yu coldly laughed. "Not only that, I'm not the one looking for him today. There are quite a few guests who wish to meet with Qin Wentian. You should know who these guests are, right? He won't meet with them." Bailu Yi confidently replied. She naturally knew who these people were. Recently, there were quite a few 4th-ranked grandmasters who came to the White Deer Institute, wanting to meet with Qin Wentian. The White Deer Institute didn't reject them. The status of a 4th-ranked grandmaster was already extraordinary, and in addition to the fact that there were some people who wanted to make use of the pressure from the outside world to threaten Qin Wentian, how could she not understand? With so many important characters here, as long as the White Deer Institute gave up on Qin Wentian, he would be in an extremely dangerous situation outside. Cooperating with the White Deer Institute and handing over the treasure to them was undoubtedly the best choice. Is that so? Little E, is your friend really so arrogant? He doesn't even want to meet with a fourth-ranked grandmaster. Bai Lu Yu coldly laughed. Even if he doesn't want to meet with me, he should be the one to answer me personally. After speaking, Bai Lu Yu continued walking forwards. Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes flashed as her silhouette flickered, blocking Bai Lu Yu's path. Impudent. Bai Lu Yu coldly snorted as his aura gushed forth. It was as though he no longer cared about face. Even if he had to make a move, he still wanted to meet with that person in the back mountains. Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes turned ashen, extremely unsightly to behold. Since Senior wishes to meet with me, feel free to do so. An ethereal voice drifted over from the back mountains, causing Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes to freeze. The owner of this voice was someone she was too familiar with. Chapter 280. Bai Lu Yu smiled at Bai Lu Yi before walking out. Bai Lu Yi naturally stepped aside and followed behind Bai Lu Yu, arriving at the back of the mountain. On the grassy hillside, Qin Wentian sat cross-legged. Upon seeing Bai Lu Yu, he couldn't help but smile. Does Senior have any instructions for me? Grandmaster Qin, it's so difficult to even meet you. Bai Lu Yu exclaimed in a loud voice. The way he addressed Qin Wentian as Grandmaster Qin contained hints of mockery. Senior must be joking. It's just that Junior has been in closed-door seclusion these few days. Little E was worried that I would be disturbed, hence she stopped Senior. If she offended you in any way, please forgive her. Qin Wentian still had a smile on his face, ignoring Bai Lu Yu's sarcasm. As the saying goes, no one would slap a smiling face. However, Bai Lu Yu continued, Grandmaster Qin is in closed-door seclusion. Could it be that you've already broken through to the fourth-ranked? Why can't we meet? Qin Wentian continued smiling, not replying. Bai Lu Yu couldn't help but to add, currently, there are many guests visiting my White Deer Institute, and among them, there are even fourth-ranked grandmasters. Grandmaster Qin, would you be willing to give us the face to meet with them? Qin Wentian's expression turned solemn. I, Qin, don't know anyone in the Moon Continent, why would there be people wanting to pay a visit? Qin Wentian curiously asked. As the sound of his voice faded, an expression of interest appeared on Bai Lu Yu's face, laughing at Qin Wentian for not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. He even dared to use the word, pay a visit. Not, pay a visit, I'm asking you to meet them. Bai Lu Yu emphasized the word, pay a visit. Oh. Qin Wentian nodded. After which, he fell silent. These grandmasters really came at the right time. He glanced at Bai Lu Yi, and upon seeing the worried expression on her face, he instantly understood. Most probably, this was because of the ancient scroll. If not, there wouldn't be any fourth-ranked grandmasters wanting to meet with him. Bai Lu Yu couldn't help but to continue mocking Qin Wentian, Grandmaster Qin, are you still not preparing to move? Why must we move? Qin Wentian had a strange expression on his face as he stared at Bai Lu Yu. You. Bai Lu Yu's gaze froze as he stared at Qin Wentian. There are so many fourth-ranked grandmasters wanting to meet with you. Tell me, why did you make a move? Could it be that you want all of them to meet with you? Bai Lu Yu's tone had already turned cold, yet Bai Lu Yi sarcastically interjected, Uncle Yu, I'm sure you're very clear of the reason why they want to meet with Qin Wentian. Why do you still want to come here personally to persuade them? Bai Lu Yu's motive was extremely clear. He wanted Qin Wentian to meet with those people, and after that, he wanted Qin Wentian to feel the pressure of the outside world. Only then would Qin Wentian submit to his father, Bai Lu Tong, in order to protect himself. Humph, Bai Lu Yu coldly snorted, lobbyist. I'm only here to inform him. What do you mean by lobbyist? Could it be that he wants to avoid meeting with all the grandmasters? Senior must be joking. Why would I, Qin, avoid meeting with them? Qin Wentian faintly replied, the smile on his face gradually vanishing. Bai Lu Yu coldly laughed as he glanced at Qin Wentian. If they don't want to meet, they don't want to meet. What's there to avoid? Qin Wentian continued. The cold smile on Bai Lu Yu's face froze as he stared at Qin Wentian, only to see Qin Wentian continuing, Senior, you've already said it yourself. It's them who want to meet with me, not me, the other way round. Bai Lu Yu stared at Qin Wentian. What an interesting fellow. Do you mean that you want all the grandmasters to pay their respects to you? Bai Lu Yu teased. I don't dare to use the word pay their respects. Qin Wentian shook his head. It's just that Senior only said that there's a fourth-ranked grandmaster who wishes to meet with me. Firstly, you didn't mention the name of that grandmaster, and secondly, you didn't even mention the reason why he wants to meet with me. I don't have anything to ask of them, nor have I received any favors from them. If I do that, wouldn't I be belittling myself? Could it be that Senior likes to belittle himself in this manner? Bai Lu Yu's eyes narrowed as he laughed, you have a sharp tongue. Since that's the case, I shall inform the other grandmasters and tell them to pay their respects to Grandmaster Qin. As the sound of his voice faded, Bai Lu Yu flicked his sleeves and departed. The young man behind him swept his gaze over to Qin Wentian, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. After the three of them left, Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes flickered with worry. She turned to Qin Wentian. During the time you were in closed-door seclusion, there were rumors circulating that you obtained the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. Bai Lu Yu is the son of Bai Lu Tong, and I'm sure you're very clear of his motive for coming here. Today, a group of grandmasters came here, and they're extremely ferocious. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly as he stood up. Seeing the haggard look on Bai Lu Yi's face, he couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, if they go too far, I won't let them off easy. Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes brightened as she stared at the smile on Qin Wentian's face. Did you really break through this time around? Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head. Really? Bai Lu Yi asked again. Yes. Qin Wentian nodded his head again. Fourth ranked, you're not lying to me. Bai Lu Yi asked again, the light in her eyes growing brighter and brighter. Fourth ranked, a 19-year-old fourth-ranked grandmaster. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes as he walked over and rapped Bai Lu Yi on her head. Absolutely true, I'm not lying to you. That's great. Bai Lu Yi's countenance was filled with excitement. She couldn't help but jump up as she hugged Qin Wentian tightly. Heavens, I've actually seen a 19-year-old fourth-ranked grandmaster with my own eyes. Is he going to create history in the moon continent? This is too crazy, Qin Wentian, you're too crazy. Qin Wentian didn't expect Bai Lu Yi to be so excited. Feeling the softness on his arm, Qin Wentian's eyes stared unblinkingly at the pure and innocent girl. As though sensing Qin Wentian's gaze, Bai Lu Yi froze for a moment. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she glanced down at her own body leaning on Qin Wentian's arm. Instantly, a blush appeared on her face. Coupled with that pure and innocent countenance of hers, it caused Qin Wentian to stare in a daze. Although he was already used to beauties, the pure and innocent Bai Lu Yi in front of him right now was simply too beautiful. The excitement in her eyes was pure and without any impurities. Wait here, I'll help you blow things up a little more. Bai Lu Yi's eyes lit up as she sprinted away. As though sensing something, Bai Lu Yi rubbed her temples as she turned back to glare at Qin Wentian. Bastard, how could you be so strong? Only now did I realize. Qin Wentian was completely speechless. After which, he only saw Bai Lu Yi smiling sweetly at him as she sped away. Blow things up a little more. Qin Wentian blinked his eyes as he stared at the graceful silhouette of Bai Lu Yi. This lass really wanted to see the world in chaos. Not long after, Qin Wentian saw a group of silhouettes flying over. Many of these people had white hair and white beards, exuding an air of immortality. There were also a few who had amiable expressions on their faces, their eyes gleaming with sharpness. However, regardless of their external appearances, the aura they exuded was the same, arrogance. Powerful divine inscriptionists had always been worshipped and respected by others. The major powers of the Yuanfu continent were all willing to pay a hefty price to nurture them, as long as they were willing. Fourth-ranked divine inscriptionists would never lack wealth, nor would they lack fame. No matter where they went, they would be like the moon surrounded by stars. Even now, there were several old men with cultivation bases at the upper third level of Yuanfu standing behind them, protecting them. For those with limited achievements in the martial path, if they had talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions, they would spend a large amount of time researching divine inscriptions. Hence, even if they were fourth-ranked divine inscriptionists, they might only have a cultivation base at the Yuanfu realm. Hence, they needed guards, and naturally, there would be people willing to be their guards. It was inevitable that they would be filled with arrogance. When they appeared in front of Qin Wentian could clearly feel the intense aura exuded by these divine inscriptionists. 2 of them are heavenly dipper sovereigns, while the rest are all at the Yuanfu realm. The weakest among them is only at the 5th level of Yuanfu. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over, instantly knowing the cultivation bases of these people. He could tell that they were at the Yuanfu realm, but he couldn't tell that they were at the Yuanfu realm. One of the heavenly dipper sovereigns was someone that Qin Wentian was acquainted with. Senior pays his respects to Grandmaster Fenrir. Qin Wentian politely bowed to one of the heavenly dipper sovereigns. Back then during the exchange in the star-seizing manor, it was none other than Grandmaster Fenrir who was the judge. Grandmaster Fenrir smiled as he nodded his head. His gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian's surroundings as a sharp glint flickered in his eyes. His heart pounded violently, as though he had just seen something extremely shocking. Back then when we parted at the star-seizing manor, I could already tell that you were an extraordinary individual. Now, you've truly met with a heaven-sent opportunity. Naturally, this opportunity was also obtained through your own hard work. Congratulations. Grandmaster Fenrir smiled and nodded to Qin Wentian, treating him with respect. His tone was calm, and there was no hint of arrogance in it. Qin Wentian could easily sense the closeness radiating from Grandmaster Fenrir. He also understood the meaning behind Grandmaster Fenrir's words. He smiled and nodded his head in reply, Junior's luck isn't bad. Back then when Grandmaster Fenrir imparted the divine inscriptions to me, Junior also benefited greatly from it. After speaking, Qin Wentian bowed again, appearing extremely sincere. Good. Grandmaster Fenrir smiled as he nodded his head. He shifted his feet slightly to the side, as though he was intentionally putting some distance between himself and the others. Yet in his heart, he couldn't help but sigh. This young man was definitely not an ordinary individual. In the future, he would definitely transform into a dragon that soared to the 9 heavens. Right now, he could only befriend Qin Wentian and not offend him. However, the others didn't notice Grandmaster Fenrir's casual actions. They also didn't understand the deep meaning behind his simple words. Not only that, some of them even thought that Grandmaster Fenrir was hinting that Qin Wentian had obtained the Ascendant's inheritance. And Qin Wentian had actually admitted it. As such, the light in their eyes grew even brighter as they stared at Qin Wentian. The way they looked at Qin Wentian was as though they were looking at their prey. The inheritance of the Ascendant, today, they had to force this brat to hand it over. Chapter 281. Swords drawn and bows bent, this was the perfect word to describe the situation Qin Wentian was currently facing. Bailu Yu had also arrived, he was the one who brought these grandmasters here. However, he had an ulterior motive, he didn't wish for Qin Wentian to hand over the ancient scroll. He only wanted to make Qin Wentian feel pressured. When Qin Wentian couldn't withstand the pressure, he would naturally give Qin Wentian a chance. Hence, Bailu Yu merely stood at the side, a cold smile curling his lips. In such a situation, he wanted to see how Qin Wentian would handle it. But at this moment, the sound of footsteps drifted over. Bailu Yu turned his head, only to see a group of people walking over. He couldn't help but be stunned. It was actually the Great Elder, Bailu Yi, Bailu Shan and Bailu Jing. This lass, did she think that by bringing the Great Elder here, she would be able to help Qin Wentian? Bailu Yu naturally knew that this was Bailu Yi's doing. He bowed slightly to the large-eyed elder as he called out, "Great Elder." The large-eyed elder casually nodded his head, yet his heart was filled with bewilderment. Bailu Yi had told him that there would be a good show to watch here, hence, he decided to follow her here. "Father." Bailu Yu suddenly noticed Bailu Tong also walking over. Bailu Tong nodded his head lightly as he glanced at the large-eyed elder. He knew that the Great Elder would be here, hence he decided to follow along. He wouldn't allow Bailu Yi to spoil his plans. The other grandmasters didn't rush to speak. They remained silent for a moment, and upon seeing that the large-eyed elder and Bailu Tong had no intention to speak, many thoughts flashed through their minds. They weren't in a hurry, so Qin Wentian wasn't in a hurry as well. He simply stood there quietly. However, with so many seniors trying to force him to abdicate, how could he not be in a good mood? Finally, an old man with sunken eyes and a high-nose bridge was the first to lose his cool. He stared at Qin Wentian with narrowed eyes akin to a venomous snake, causing Qin Wentian to feel extremely uncomfortable. Qin Wentian. This old man had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Yuanfu, and behind him were 3 guards at the 9th level of Yuanfu. His eyes narrowed as he coldly laughed. "You want us to come here personally to see you? This is the first time I've seen someone as arrogant as you. Senior, you must be joking." Qin Wentian pointed at the path behind the old man and smiled. "What do you mean?" The other party stared at Qin Wentian. "I didn't mean for Senior to come and see me. I think Senior must have misunderstood. The main road is there, Senior." Qin Wentian smiled and pointed to the road ahead. What he meant was obvious. "Senior, you must be joking. I didn't ask you to come to see me. You came to see me yourself. If you don't want to see me, the road is right there. Go ahead." "You." How could the other party not understand the meaning behind Qin Wentian's words? His sunken eyes deepened, and a cold glint burst forth from them. Sharp-tongued. "You wanted us to come here, but now you want me to leave just like that? Isn't this too ridiculous? You overestimate yourself too much." The other party continued. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness when he heard the other party's words. "Are you crazy?" As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the expression of the old man stiffened. Did the other party just say that he was crazy in public? Ever since he stepped into the ranks of 4th-ranked divine inscriptionists, he had never been humiliated before. Behind him, 3 silhouettes stepped out, exuding a terrifying aura as they gushed towards Qin Wentian. As long as the old man gave the order, they would immediately act against Qin Wentian. "I'll give you a chance to apologize." The countenance of the old man turned ice-cold, so cold that it pierced into the bones. It was still too early for the contest over the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, but now, he wanted an explanation from Qin Wentian. "Seems like not only are you crazy, your sickness isn't light at all." The smile on Qin Wentian's face faded. His eyes swept over to the newcomers as his gaze gradually turned sharp. How could he not be angered by these people? But since they were all divine inscriptionists, he might as well try to be polite before resorting to violence. Since the other party wasn't going to be polite, what did he, Qin Wentian, have to fear? Impudent. The 3 of them roared in rage as they took a step forward. However, Qin Wentian only spoke, "If you take another step forward, I'll kill you." As the sound of the word kill faded, a bone-chilling killing intent gushed forth from Qin Wentian, causing the entire space to be filled with a bone-chilling killing intent. The hearts of the three involuntarily shuddered when they saw Qin Wentian's gaze sweeping over. Even with their cultivation bases, they could feel a terrifying coldness from Qin Wentian's eyes. It was as though the sharpness of a blade was slicing through their minds, piercing into their bones. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the entire hillside instantly fell into silence. A light breeze gusted by, causing the green grass on the ground to sway lightly. Only to see Qin Wentian staring at the fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. Each and every one of his gazes was akin to a cold blade, piercing into the eyes of the fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. I've already given you face by addressing you as senior, yet you don't know how to conduct yourself. Since you don't want to listen to my kind words, I, Qin, will repeat my intentions one more time. Qin Wentian coldly continued, I, Qin Wentian, am cultivating here. You can come and go as you please. What does this have to do with me? Please don't use the tone of I invited you here to speak to me. Firstly, I, Qin, am not your junior, and secondly, I have nothing to ask of you. Why would I invite you here? If you have nothing else to say, just scram. The domineering tone of Qin Wentian's words caused the people in the surroundings to be stunned, as their eyes flickered with uncertainty. Arrogance, truly arrogance. Although there was some logic in Qin Wentian's words, in this world, the strong reign supreme. Who wouldn't respect a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist? Yet he, Qin Wentian, directly told the divine inscriptionist that he was the one who came to see him, not the one who invited him here. If you have nothing else to say, just scram. One could say that the words spoken by Qin Wentian had completely offended a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. Even if Qin Wentian was fine today, if a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist wanted to deal with a Yuanfu cultivator like Qin Wentian, it would be too much for him to handle. The large-eyed elder was also baffled by Qin Wentian's words. Where did this little fellow's self-confidence come from? Glancing at Bailu Yi beside him, Bailu Yi's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange light, as though she was at ease. Her confidence in Qin Wentian didn't seem to be any less than Qin Wentian himself. Grandmaster Fenrir, on the other hand, had a smile on his face. He didn't say anything as he quietly watched the development unfold. He also wanted to see how Qin Wentian would deal with the situation today. As for the high-nosed elder, his countenance turned extremely sinister after hearing Qin Wentian's words. If there's nothing else, just scram. Was this something a first-ranked Yuanfu cultivator would say to him? If he took another step forward, he would die. Where did his confidence come from? Maybe, he had obtained the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, allowing him to inscribe top-tier third-ranked divine inscriptions as well as formations. However, with him here, did Qin Wentian really think that he could borrow the power of formations or divine inscriptions to kill his follower? Brother Liang, the temper of the youngsters these days is really bad. A black-faced middle-aged man laughed. Brother Liang was none other than the high-nosed elder. If it wasn't for the fact that we are in the White Deer Institute, given Brother Liang's temper, he would have died 10 times over. The black-faced middle-aged man continued. The high-nosed elder narrowed his eyes. Regardless of whether they were in the White Deer Institute or not, why would they waste so much time talking nonsense with Qin Wentian? They would directly kill him and seize the ancient scroll. But now, they all understood that since the White Deer Institute allowed them to enter, it meant that the White Deer Institute had yet to force Qin Wentian to hand over the ancient scroll. Similarly, the White Deer Institute wanted to use them to threaten Qin Wentian. Hence, these people temporarily decided to wait and see. The high-nosed elder surnamed Liang was the most impatient of them all. Hence, he took the initiative to make things difficult for Qin Wentian. Indeed, this brat doesn't respect his seniors, he should be punished for his rudeness. Another person spoke. This person stroked his white beard, exuding an air of immortality. This old man was already over 150 years old and had immersed himself in the study of divine inscriptions for a long time. He had also stepped into the fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist realm for quite a few years, and there were many who knew him in the Moon continent. Many divine inscriptionists had received his guidance before. Hence, this old man was someone of virtue and prestige. That's what Old Song said as well. The black-faced middle-aged man laughed. The high-nosed elder glanced at Old Song. Old Song, how should we punish this brat? Does Fenrir have any opinions? Old Song stroked his beard as he turned his gaze onto Grandmaster Fenrir. Don't ask me. Back then, I had a friendly encounter with him. Today, I'm only here to take a look. I won't interfere in your matters. Fenrir smiled as he waved his hands, not getting involved in this matter. Qin Wentian was brimming with confidence. He must have already made preparations. He was more than happy to watch the show. In that case, the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. Old Song placed his hand on his beard, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. That has nothing to do with me. If you guys can obtain it, just go ahead. Fenrir waved his hands. Good, good. Old Song stroked his beard as he laughed. They had one less strong opponent. This brat was so disrespectful to Grandmaster Liang and the other Grandmasters. He deserves death. At this moment, a voice drifted over from the back of the crowd. The black-faced middle-aged man smiled. Gauze, it seems like you have some ideas. I've long recognized this brat. He doesn't respect his elders, and has the ambition of a wolf. If he were to obtain the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, it would be a waste of a heavenly treasure. This brat deserves death, and I'm sure the White Deer Institute won't hold it against him. Gauze's voice was ice-cold. Gauze, how shameless can you be? Bai Lui cursed as she turned her gaze onto Gauze. Back then, he had some grudges with Qin Wentian, but Qin Wentian didn't hold it against him. Yet now, Gauze actually wanted these people to kill Qin Wentian. How ruthless. Miss Bai Lui, it seems like your heart aches for your lover. But I, Gauze, believe that the White Deer Institute will understand right from wrong. Gauze wasn't angered, he casually laughed. The crowd shifted their gazes onto the large-eyed elder and Bai Lu Tong, as though they had already discussed how to deal with Qin Wentian. Next, they just had to wait for the White Deer Institute to express their stance. Bai Lu Tong's gaze shifted onto Qin Wentian as he coldly stated, that will depend on what he chooses. Evidently, Bai Lu Tong wanted to push the pressure onto Qin Wentian, forcing him to make a decision. These grandmasters wanted to kill him. What did he want, the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, or his life? Qin Wentian stared at the people before him. Each and every one of them was a person of virtue and prestige, deciding his life and death as they chatted. It was as though his life wasn't even worth mentioning. And that Gauze, he actually dared to throw stones at Qin Wentian when he was down. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the crowd as he slowly spoke. After speaking so much nonsense, have you finally revealed your true intentions? What a bunch of sanctimonious fellows. I, Qin, don't have the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, and even if I did, it wouldn't be your turn. Chapter 282. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, Bai Lu Tong faintly glanced at him. Qin Wentian, it's a good thing that you're hot-blooded and don't fear death. However, there are many times when there are better choices to be made. Why must you choose the path of death for the sake of venting your anger? No matter what, you are a guest of the White Deer Institute. If you are willing to hand over the ancient scroll to the Institute, I'm sure the other grandmasters won't continue to make things difficult for you. Bai Lu Tong's countenance was calm, as though he was thinking for Qin Wentian's sake. However, he chose to speak only now. One could very well imagine his intentions. The countenances of those grandmasters all changed as they silently cursed at this old fox. Senior, you worry too much. Junior is still young, how would I want to die? Qin Wentian calmly replied. handing over the ancient scroll to Bai Lu Tong. Taking it for himself would be more appropriate. Oh. Bai Lu Tong's countenance flickered before he smiled. Since this is the case, I won't try to persuade you any further. After speaking, he closed his eyes, as though he was prepared to accept the actions of these grandmasters. The high-nosed old Liang, eccentric Song, the black-faced middle-aged man and the rest exchanged glances, as hints of laughter could be seen flickering in their eyes. The high-nosed old Liang stared at Qin Wentian, his sunken eyes narrowed as he sinisterly stated, the ancient scroll of the Ascendant naturally belongs to the strongest. Since a junior like you wants to take it for yourself, only death awaits you. As the sound of his voice faded, 3 protectors stepped out, moving towards Qin Wentian. I've said it before, take one more step and you will die. Qin Wentian stared at the 3 protectors, his eyes flashing with a golden light. Instantly, the 3 protectors felt their heads shuddering, as though they were struck by a powerful attack. Instantly, the will of their mandates gushed forth, as a pressure as heavy as a mountain gushed forth. One of the protectors grabbed out with his palm, and instantly, a gigantic blood-colored palm the size of a mountain appeared in the air, causing Qin Wentian's blood to flow unimpeded. Boom! That blood-colored gigantic palm slammed down, causing an explosive sound to ring out. Just when everyone thought that Qin Wentian had died, they only saw Qin Wentian still standing there with a smile on his face, calmly looking at them. Those divine inscriptionists all frowned. They could feel that Qin Wentian's body was gradually turning blurry, as though he wasn't a corporeal entity. Although he was right in front of them, he didn't seem to have a body of flesh and blood. Fenrir rubbed his chin as a faint smile appeared on his face. Divine inscriptionists all had their own specialties. Some were proficient in divine inscriptions, some were proficient in formations, some were proficient in weaponsmithing, and some were proficient in the art of puppetry. Although both of them were 4th-ranked grandmasters, the disparity in their attainments in all aspects could be immense. Fenrir was extremely proficient in divine inscriptions, as well as divine inscriptions formations. Not only that, as a heavenly dipper sovereign, his perception was exceedingly sharp. He had long since discovered that there was a grand formation inscribed by Qin Wentian here. This formation was an illusory formation, where the illusory and real coexisted. This illusory formation was a 4th-ranked formation. Not only that, what made Fenrir even more astonished was that this 4th-ranked illusory formation had no offensive capabilities. Hence, the illusory energy contained within it was extremely powerful, making it extremely difficult to see through. Hence, the other 4th-ranked grandmasters didn't even notice the existence of this 4th-ranked illusory formation. They also didn't realize that the true purpose of this 4th-ranked illusory formation was to conceal the divine inscriptions within. Those divine inscriptions could be activated at the slightest touch. Fenrir couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for these so-called 4th-ranked grandmasters. How much determination did Qin Wentian have today? Illusory formation. Those grandmasters weren't mediocre characters. At this moment, they could also tell that there was an extremely well-hidden illusory formation in this place. Old Song. The sharp-nosed old Liang stared at the esteemed Old Song with a questioning expression on his face. Old Song was someone who had dabbled in the art of formations. Old Song was frowning as he narrowed his eyes. An ominous feeling welled up in his heart. He had dabbled in the Tao of formations, and now that there was an illusory formation hidden in front of him, he actually couldn't see through it. This was sufficient to cause him to be on high alert. Staring at the smiling young man in front of him, Old Song continued, "Don't worry, this formation is illusory, we can't attack it. Kill him. Kill." The sharp-nosed old Liang spat out another command upon hearing Old Song's words. The 3 experts dashed forwards, aiming for Qin Wentian's silhouette. Regardless of whether his opponent was real or illusory, they would still destroy him. However, at this moment, a terrifying whistling sound abruptly rang out. The eyes of the 3 experts narrowed as they stared at the ground beneath their feet. Over there, a resplendent light suddenly flashed. That was the glow of divine inscriptions. Shio, shio, shio. The terrifying whistling sound of swords instantly transformed into an ear-piercing sound. The three experts only saw tens of thousands of sword chi converging together to form a spiraling tempest that swept towards them. The might of the tempest formed by tens of thousands of sword chi was extremely terrifying. It was akin to a meat grinder, capable of annihilating everything in its path. They instantly soared into the air, wanting to evade it. Boom! All of a sudden, a sound reverberated through the air. Another resplendent divine inscription lit up beneath their feet. They only felt that there was a force of millions of kilograms pulling at their feet. Their entire bodies were incomparably heavy, and they were actually unable to rise into the air. In an extremely short instant, the spiraling tempest formed by the sword chi revolved around the three of them, enveloping them within. Expressions of terror could be seen on the faces of the three experts as they howled in rage, no. Their bodies trembled violently, as despair could be seen in their eyes. The spiraling tempest that enveloped them was definitely an attack at the pinnacle of Yuanfu, and right now, it was engulfing them. Save me! One of them screamed in a frenzy, as he turned his head and stared at the sharp-nosed old Liang. The look of despair in his eyes caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. Stop! The sharp-nosed old Liang roared in rage. However, the spiraling tempest formed by the sword chi had completely engulfed the three experts. The whistling sound of the sword chi continued, and occasionally, a drop of crimson blood would splatter out. When the tempest finally calmed down, there was nothing left in that direction. The three experts at the pinnacle of Yuanfu vanished like smoke, vanishing from the vision of the spectators. The countenances of the spectators were all extremely unsightly. There were so many grandmasters here, yet three of them had been killed by Qin Wentian using the Tao of divine inscriptions. Their gazes turned to Qin Wentian, who was still standing there. Only now did they realize that this young man wasn't as weak as they had imagined. Fourth-ranked Grandmaster. Qin Wentian stared at the sharp-nosed old Liang, as a mocking light flashed in his eyes. Do you dare to break my divine inscriptions? Old Liang's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He turned his head and glanced at eccentric Song, only to see eccentric Song narrowing her eyes in contemplation. Earlier, the divine inscriptions were concealed by his illusory formation, and it's true that the formation didn't have any offensive capabilities. Those three experts died to the hidden divine inscriptions. I'm sure you've already seen it, and it wasn't just a single peak-tier, third-ranked divine inscriptions. Qin Wentian had long since prepared for this. Their deaths were all worth it. Eccentric Song calmly stated, while old Liang's countenance turned ashen. Was this considered using his protectors to probe Qin Wentian's strength? This old fart was truly scheming and far-sighted. Is that so? Since you've already found out, does Grandmaster want to test it out? Qin Wentian indifferently stated to Eccentric Song. Eccentric Song stroked his beard as he laughed, just a mere third-ranked divine inscription, there's no need for me to act personally. Gauze, you go and break it. Qin Wentian laughed, letting Gauze break it. Old fox. Gauze cursed in his heart when he heard Eccentric Song's words. Although he was extremely unhappy with Qin Wentian, he couldn't help but feel fear in his heart when he saw the scene earlier. He knew that it would be extremely dangerous for him to break the divine inscription. The other grandmasters didn't reply, they merely watched on calmly. At this moment, their hearts were filled with bewilderment. That illusory formation could even fool their eyes. Was it really a third-ranked formation? However, they would rather believe that there were some unique formations that could hide it perfectly, preventing them from seeing through it. If not, if it was a fourth-ranked formation, then, however, they felt that they were worrying too much. How could it be so easy to break through from the third-ranked to the fourth-ranked? How old was Qin Wentian? It was impossible. Without at least 10 years of accumulation, it would be impossible. The inheritance of the Ascendant is truly powerful. Bai Lu Yu faintly commented. Momentarily, the eyes of the crowd brightened. That's right, Qin Wentian must have comprehended a powerful formation from the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, causing them to be unable to see through it. Gauze, speed up. The black-faced middle-aged man turned his gaze onto Gauze as he coldly stated, if you kill this brat, we will not mistreat you. Gauze's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold, but he still nodded his head. Numerous puppets appeared before him, and he followed behind them as they advanced towards Qin Wentian. Kill. Gauze spat out a single word. Momentarily, the puppets frenziedly dashed out, while he himself stood there motionlessly. Although the killing intent radiating from him was extremely sharp, he was still extremely cautious. Abruptly, the ground beneath the illusory formation lit up with a resplendent radiance as a terrifying aura radiated forth. A terrifying great rock appeared in the air, lunging towards the puppets. Gauze stared at the divine inscription in front of him, as his perception gushed out, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. This divine inscription is extremely easy to break. Gauze, why are you still not moving forward? The black-faced middle-aged man coldly stated. Gauze nodded his head, it wasn't difficult to break the divine inscription in front of him. His steps were extremely slow, as he maintained his vigilance. However, when he took the third step, before he could even get close to the divine inscription, another divine inscription lit up beneath his feet. It was unknown how many divine inscriptions were hidden within this formation. Bzzz. A whistling sound rang out from below. Gauze's countenance instantly paled. He was walking on the divine inscription, yet he didn't even notice the divine inscription beneath his feet. Puchi. A terrifying long spear pierced through Gauze's body, nailing him to the ground. Gauze's eyes were still wide open as he stared at Qin Wentian. Regret could be seen flickering in his eyes. Why did he have to come here today? Why did he have to be so talkative? Only to see Qin Wentian waving his hands, as a surge of flames gushed forth, engulfing Gauze's body, incinerating his corpse. At the same time, Qin Wentian kept the ownerless puppets. Now, these puppets belonged to him. The various divine inscriptionists stood there, their countenances ashen. The formation of this Empyrean was simply too powerful, to be able to conceal the third-ranked divine inscription so perfectly. Even Gauze, a peak-tier third-ranked divine inscriptionist, was killed by stepping on it. Fourth-ranked divine inscriptionists. Qin Wentian stared at those who didn't dare to take the risk. He coldly laughed, all of you are already so old, yet you still have some attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. What a bunch of trash, how pitiful. Chapter 283. Qin Wentian wasn't polite at all, insulting all the Grandmaster-level characters in front of him, as though he wanted to incite their anger. Who were these people? Usually, no matter where they went, they would always be treated as esteemed guests. Today, they were being pointed at by a young man, how could they not be embarrassed? However, they didn't reply, nor did any of them act out in anger. Earlier, they forced Gauze to step forward because they wanted him to probe Qin Wentian's strength. They didn't feel the slightest bit of pity for Gauze's death. At the very least, they knew that this illusory formation was extremely mysterious. Beneath it, there were many fatal divine inscriptions. Although they were only third-ranked divine inscriptions, as long as they were hidden there, they wouldn't be able to sense them. No matter how high their attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were, stepping into the formation would be extremely dangerous. Which of these people weren't old fellows who had lived for more than half a century? Facing such a situation, they would naturally be extremely cautious. It didn't matter if others died, but their own lives were extremely precious. Even if Qin Wentian wanted to infuriate them, it wouldn't work. Young man, what a heavy baleful aura. Eccentric Song stroked his beard as he coldly continued, however, even if you have the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, do you think you have the qualifications to be so arrogant in front of us? Earlier, we already gave you a chance, but who would have thought that you would be so obstinate? A fourth-ranked Grandmaster would personally inscribe divine inscriptions to kill you. How can you withstand that? As eccentric Song spoke, he glanced at the others, causing smiles to appear on their faces. Old Ginger was spicier than young Ginger. Why would they bother to break Qin Wentian's formation? They could directly inscribe divine inscriptions to kill Qin Wentian. It would be as easy as flipping their palms. How thick-skinned. Bailu Yi couldn't help but laugh when she saw that a group of fourth-ranked Grandmasters didn't even dare to break the formation. What made her even more speechless was that they didn't dare to break the formation, and instead wanted to inscribe divine inscriptions to kill Qin Wentian. Such an action was simply a humiliation, yet these old fellows didn't seem to have the slightest bit of self-awareness. With regards to Bailu Yi's voice, these people chose to ignore it. Old Liang, this brat killed your protector. Inscribe a divine inscription to kill him. Old Liang, you should be the one to do it. The black-faced middle-aged man turned his gaze onto Old Liang, causing Old Liang to frown. After which, the black-faced middle-aged man continued, I'll get the puppets to protect you. This dark-faced middle-aged man had refined quite a few peak third-tier puppets. He wanted to refine fourth-tier puppets, and the Empyrean's ancient scroll was his chance. I will carve an array to protect you. Elder Song nodded at Elder Liang. Elder Liang pondered for a moment before nodding. At this moment, Qin Wentian also understood. There were many people here today, but other than Fenrir, there were only 3 fourth-ranked Grandmasters in front of him. Not only that, there was also a Heavenly Dipper sovereign who hadn't spoken since the start. Who knew if he was a fourth-ranked Grandmaster or not? He and Wind Valley were the most powerful people here. Elder Song and the others were probably quite afraid of him and had not allowed him to do anything. As for the others, they should be their disciples or protectors. Qin Wentian wondered if there were any fourth-ranked Grandmasters among them. Old Liang warily took a step forward, his sunken eyes staring at Qin Wentian. He no longer dared to treat Qin Wentian as an ordinary third-ranked Grandmaster. Seeing the actions of these people, Qin Wentian laughed, Qin, shall wait for you all to break the array. After speaking, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes, as though everything that happened in the outside world had nothing to do with him. This brat is extremely crafty, Old Liang, don't fall for his tricks. The black-faced middle-aged man summoned his puppet to protect Old Liang. Old Liang took a few steps forward, releasing his perception to the maximum. With a stomp of his foot, numerous runic inscriptions manifested on the ground. This fourth-ranked Grandmaster was starting to inscribe divine inscriptions. Although Old Liang was inscribing the divine inscriptions, he didn't dare to move forward. Instead, he maintained a certain distance from Qin Wentian. Not long after, the divine inscriptions Old Liang was inscribing exuded a powerful might. As an experienced fourth-ranked Grandmaster, he only needed 2 hours to inscribe a complete fourth-ranked attack-type divine inscription. The moment the divine inscription was completed, it would be the time of Qin Wentian's death. An hour passed, yet Qin Wentian's eyes were still closed in meditation. Old Liang inclined his head and glanced at him as a sinister light flickered in his eyes. This brat was just sitting there, waiting for his death. After that, he lowered his head and continued inscribing the divine inscription. The might contained within the divine inscription grew stronger and stronger. How slow! Qin Wentian murmured. After which, he slammed his palms onto the ground, and instantly, his entire body transformed into a blur as he dashed forward. With a thunderous boom, 2 Jiao dragons appeared in front of him, howling with rage. Old Liang's countenance stiffened, only to see the black-faced middle-aged man coldly snorting as his puppet rushed forward, preparing to block the Jiao dragons. Boom! Qin Wentian took another step forward, as numerous terrifying arrows pierced through the air, directly locking onto Old Liang. Old Liang stepped out as a shield of divine inscriptions appeared in front of him. After which, he saw that Qin Wentian was actually standing in the maw of a demonic dragon. The demonic dragon roared forward, while the Jiao dragons on the left and right acted as his protectors, forcing the black-faced middle-aged man's puppet into retreat. The terrifying claws of the demonic dragon lashed out, forcing old Liang to retreat. With a loud cracking sound, the shield of light shattered, and Qin Wentian slammed his palms onto the ground. Impudent! The black-faced middle-aged man roared, as a long spear of darkness appeared in his hands. His silhouette flickered as he dashed forward, the spear abruptly pierced out. Instantly, the black dragon within the spear howled in rage, exuding a terrifying might. It was as though he had been waiting for this attack. Blasting out a peak-tier third-ranked attack, this spear of darkness should be close to a fourth-ranked divine weapon. Qin Wentian abruptly turned and walked back, while the demonic dragon continued forward, colliding head-on with the black-faced middle-aged man's attack, causing a terrifying sound of destruction to echo out. The light of the demonic dragon was destroyed, yet Qin Wentian had already returned to his original location. Old Liang's countenance was incomparably ashen, the divine inscriptions he painstakingly inscribed were completely destroyed by Qin Wentian's earlier attack. It was as though Qin Wentian had long since thought of how to destroy his incomplete divine inscriptions. With a single strike, all his hard work had gone up in smoke. Everyone, there's no need to hide anymore. Let's use our own methods to kill this brat. The black-faced middle-aged man wielded the long spear in his hands as he coldly spoke. After which, he slashed out with his spear once more, causing the terrifying black dragon to howl madly as it gushed forth. However, in front of Qin Wentian, numerous ancient shields of divine inscriptions appeared. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out, but the attacks of the black-faced middle-aged man had no way to break through the defense of the divine inscriptions he had inscribed. Qin Wentian used a total of 3 days to inscribe the divine inscriptions as well as the formations here. Ever since Bailu Tong obstructed his path back then, he already knew that there would be a commotion. And now, with so many divine inscriptionists here, the preparations he made during these few days could finally be put to good use. Old Liang's sunken eyes narrowed when he heard the words of the black-faced middle-aged man. He had long known that these fellows all had their own methods. But now, they finally couldn't endure it any longer. Eccentric Song stroked his beard as his aged eyes gleamed with sharpness. Only the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns remained silent, calmly spectating everything. It was as though the matters here had nothing to do with him. What do you plan to do? Eccentric Song stared at the old man with trepidation in his eyes. This old man was the same as Fenrir. Not only was he a fourth-ranked grandmaster, he was also a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Let's do it based on our own capabilities. That old man casually replied, yet his tone was filled with incomparable arrogance. Fine, since you put it this way, let's do it based on our own capabilities. As the sound of Eccentric Song's voice faded, 3 puppets appeared in front of him. One of the puppets was fully equipped, its body was as though it was forged from a divine weapon. Both its limbs were covered in terrifying blades. This scene caused the pupils of old Liang's eyes to narrow. This old man definitely had many treasures on him. As a highly respected fourth-ranked grandmaster, he had accumulated quite a bit of wealth over the years. Just that fourth-ranked puppet alone was already extremely valuable. The black-faced middle-aged man smiled. His palm streaked across the air, and the black spear in his hand seemed to have lost a layer of light. Strands of black mist surged, and a terrifying eerie aura filled the air. That sharp aura was extremely terrifying. This was a rank 4 divine weapon. Previously, he had concealed the grade of the divine weapon. In their eyes, Qin Wentian was just a jumping clown who would die sooner or later. But what they were more concerned about was how Qin Wentian would obtain the Ascendant's ancient scroll after his death. Hence, all of them held back and didn't really want to risk their lives. But what made them surprised was that ordinary methods wouldn't be able to kill Qin Wentian. Instead, they would be in danger. Since this was the case, they might as well use the most direct and tyrannical method to settle this. Old Liang cursed in a low voice. It seemed like his wealth was truly too low. Is this the confidence of a fourth-ranked grandmaster? Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. Finally, his plan was revealed. Bailu Yi's heart skipped a beat, only to see Bailu Yu, who was beside her, indifferently interjected, "Little E, do you really think he has a chance? These people are all fourth-ranked grandmasters, don't underestimate them." Wait. Bailu Yi stared at the young man. Seeing that Qin Wentian was still as calm as ever, her voice was filled with stubbornness. Old Liang waved his hands as an umbrella appeared in his hands. With a flick of his palms, the umbrella opened up as a terrifying golden light flowed around it. He walked towards Qin Wentian, his eyes cold to the extreme. Chi. The long spear of darkness in the hands of the black-faced middle-aged man swept across the ground. Instantly, a terrifying black fissure appeared in front of him, and everywhere it passed, the earth would shatter. His gaze was incomparably cold. What kind of third-rank divine inscription could withstand such power? Even if it was concealed, it would still be destroyed. Old Liang's umbrella radiated a terrifying golden light as it spun forward, shattering the earth into dust. As for eccentric Song, he followed behind the puppet. The powerful puppet's legs slashed apart the earth, opening up a path for them. They advanced step by step until they were not far away from Qin Wentian. When they looked at Qin Wentian again, it was as though they were looking at a dead man. "How do you want to die, young man?" Eccentric Song coldly spoke, only to see Qin Wentian standing up. A cold smile could be seen in his eyes as he replied, "Are you guys so confident? No matter how well you inscribe the divine inscriptions, or how powerful your attacks are, they will all be useless." "Just like the one behind me," the black-faced middle-aged man coldly stated. "Oh. Then why don't you turn around and take a look?" Qin Wentian coldly spoke. The black-faced middle-aged man coldly laughed as he casually turned his head back. However, in an instant, his gaze froze on a certain spot. The flowing silver lines of light radiated with a dazzling light. The ground that was sliced apart didn't seem to affect the flow of the divine inscriptions at all. That divine inscription was unceasingly lacerated, even if the ground was split apart. What was even more terrifying was that in that location, the terrifying silvery light of destruction only lasted for an extremely short instant. Under his gaze, the silvery light converged into a terrifying spiraling silver tempest that was akin to a hurricane, instantly blotting out the skies. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as the earth trembled. The silvery tempest instantly engulfed everything. Qin Wentian's body was abruptly blasted into the void, transforming into a world of silver. The black-robed middle-aged man, eccentric Song and old Liang all stood there in a daze. Their bodies trembled as they inclined their heads, staring at the young man in the air. They only saw Qin Wentian lowering his head, staring down at them with an ice-cold countenance. "What about now?" Qin Wentian faintly spoke. His voice was calm and filled with confidence, yet it caused their hearts to pound wildly. This was a fourth-ranked divine inscription. Chapter 284. Fourth-ranked, that storm of sword chi was filled with an incomparably terrifying aura of destruction. This was clearly the aura of a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. Not only that, it was an extremely tyrannical storm of fourth-ranked divine inscriptions. Qin Wentian wasn't a third-ranked divine inscriptionist, he was a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. A fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist who wasn't even 20 years of age. The hearts of the spectators pounded wildly as they trembled violently. No wonder this brat was so arrogant. No wonder Qin Wentian dared to humiliate them as a bunch of useless juniors. All of them were at least 50 years old, yet they were only at the initial level of fourth-ranked divine inscriptionists. Compared to Qin Wentian, there was no way they could be compared. One could even say that there was no way to compare them. A 20-year-old 4th-ranked divine inscriptionist compared to a 50-year-old 4th-ranked divine inscriptionist. How could they even compare? Even if Qin Wentian had started studying divine inscriptions at the age of 10, it wouldn't have been more than 10 years since he started studying divine inscriptions. As for them, they had at least 40 years of experience. The disparity was too great. However, at the same time as their hearts trembled, this made them even more frenzied. It had to be the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. Even though they had seen Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions, they still believed that Qin Wentian must have obtained the ancient scroll. Only by relying on the terrifying inheritance of a 5th-ranked divine inscriptionist, did he manage to break through to the 4th-ranked. This caused the passion in their hearts to grow even more intense. They had to obtain the ancient scroll of the Ascendant no matter what. This madness caused them to forget the danger they were in. For the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, even if they had to risk their lives, it was worth it. They had to kill this brat and seize the ancient scroll from him. At the side, the large-eyed elder also felt his heart pounding. He glanced at Bai Lu beside him. You knew long ago, right? You came here just to let me witness this scene, didn't you? Grandpa, how is it? Qin Wentian isn't even 19 yet, Bai Lu smiled at the large-eyed elder. Not even 19 yet. The large-eyed elder drew in a deep breath. Leaving aside Qin Wentian's talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions, just based on his monstrous talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions, Qin Wentian would definitely become a terrifying character in the future. He definitely had the chance to break through to the 5th-ranked Grandmaster realm. Divine inscriptionists were the same as cultivators. The higher one's cultivation base, the higher their status. How could a celestial phenomenon ascendant compare to a heavenly dipper sovereign? And a 5th-ranked Grandmaster would definitely be able to summon the wind and summon the rain in Grand Xia. It wouldn't be a problem for him to recruit as many heavenly dipper sovereigns as he wished. Not only did Qin Wentian have an extremely high level of attainment in the Tao of Tao, he was also someone with extremely terrifying potential. However, Bai Lu Tong's thoughts were different. He naturally knew of Qin Wentian's talent and potential, but what he cared more about was the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. Everyone, let's stop here. The large-eyed elder spoke. At this moment, he already didn't wish for this situation to continue. Qin Wentian and the other Grandmasters were truly enraged. If they fought to the death, there would undoubtedly be casualties. Regardless of whether it was the Grandmasters or Qin Wentian, the large-eyed elder didn't want to see that happen. Qin Wentian stood in the air, the entire space around him transformed into a tempest of swords. This divine inscription was indeed a 4th-ranked divine inscription from the ancient scroll of divine inscriptions. It was named the Sword Cyclone Tempest, and could be divided into many smaller versions. It was considered a type of divine inscription with an extremely high attack power. In order to inscribe this divine inscription, he had spent a great deal of time and effort before he succeeded. At this moment, he was the ruler of this tempest. Below, in the midst of the tempest, the 3 4th-ranked Grandmasters had expressions of extreme caution on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. Elder, how can it be possible for us to stop now? The black-faced middle-aged man coldly spoke. After which, he and old Liang walked over to Eccentric Song's side. Eccentric Song, although this brat has inscribed a 4th-ranked divine inscription, your puppet is also a 4th-ranked one. We will protect you while you use your puppet to kill this brat. Once he dies, the divine inscription will have no owner, and the attack will dissipate. How about the 3 of us cultivate the ancient scroll of the Ascendant together? Eccentric Song lightly nodded her head. The 2 peak-tier 3rd-ranked puppets were already on her left and right, while the 4th-ranked puppet stood in front. The body of the puppet that was forged from a divine weapon exuded an aura of coldness. Elder, you've also heard it. I, Qin, have been in a passive position from the start to the end. This brat wants my life. Qin Wentian spoke to the large-eyed elder, his words causing the large-eyed elder's expression to stiffen. He knew that if these fourth-ranked grandmasters didn't kill Qin Wentian, they wouldn't give up. Leaving aside the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, if Qin Wentian was still alive, he would be a huge threat to them as well. After today, there would be many transcendent powers coming to the White Deer Institute to recruit Qin Wentian. For a 19-year-old grandmaster, even if it was a transcendent power, they would be willing to support him unconditionally, allowing him to research divine inscriptions. So no matter from which angle one looked at it from, Qin Wentian had to die. Grand Elder, you won't be able to persuade him otherwise, Bai Lu Tong faintly stated. He naturally hoped that the battle would continue. Eccentric Song, order the puppet to kill this brat. Old Liang, use your divine weapon to protect him. The black-faced middle-aged man's voice rang out. He already knew that the umbrella-shaped divine weapon of the high-nosed old Liang could be used for both offense and defense. Good, this brat is too arrogant. Destroy him. Eccentric Song stroked his white beard as he spoke with confidence. After which, his fourth-ranked puppet soared up into the skies, the sabers on its body lacerating the space around it. Even the sword chi was directly sliced apart. Below, the black-faced middle-aged man stabbed his spear into the ground. Instantly, the ground crumbled apart, transforming into a vacuum. At the same time, old Liang's umbrella opened up, floating above the heads of the three of them as a screen of light enveloped them within. With their bodies enveloped by fourth-ranked divine inscriptions, they didn't dare to rush out recklessly. Hence, they used their divine weapons to protect themselves, while relying on the fourth-ranked puppet to kill the Lord of Divine Inscriptions, Qin Wentian. Die! Qin Wentian flicked his finger in the air, and instantly, a terrifying sword tempest gushed towards the umbrella-shaped divine weapon. In an instant, the golden light from the tempest sword flashed, and at the same time, the fourth-ranked puppet soared up into the skies. With a terrifying sharpness, it slashed out with its palms as a terrifying beam of cold light shot towards Qin Wentian. Humph! Qin Wentian snorted as he continued, this fourth-ranked puppet, I'll gladly accept it. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying sword gushed forth, colliding with the fourth-ranked puppet in a frenzy. At the same time, Qin Wentian waved his palms as a gigantic golden-armored puppet appeared in front of him. Go! Qin Wentian coldly stated. Momentarily, the golden-armored puppet dashed towards the bladed puppet, while Qin Wentian's silhouette floated in the air, once again staring at the three divine inscriptionists hiding within their divine weapons. Puppet, he also has a fourth-ranked puppet on him. The countenances of Eccentric Song and the other two turned ashen. The golden-armored puppet and the blade-wielding puppet were locked in combat, and there was also the terrifying sword from the side. They had no way to affect Qin Wentian in the slightest. With a wave of his hands, tens of thousands of sword lights whistled through the air, coalescing into a terrifying gigantic sword that exuded boundless sharpness. After which, Qin Wentian pointed his finger downwards, and instantly, the gigantic sword slashed down from the heavens. With a thunderous boom, the gigantic sword slammed into the protective screen of light, causing the bodies of Eccentric Song and the other two to tremble violently. What should we do? What should we do? Eccentric Song was in a state of panic. This young man who wasn't even 19 years of age had completely exceeded their expectations. Damn it. Old Liang's countenance turned ashen as he stared at the black-faced middle-aged man. This divine weapon of mine has both offense and defense, but in terms of offense and defense, it can't be compared to a pure fourth-ranked divine weapon. The fourth-ranked divine inscription of the opponent is a sword-type divine inscription, it's only a matter of time before it breaks through the defense of the divine weapon. Since you have an attack-type divine weapon, kill your way out. Kill my way out. The expression of the black-faced middle-aged man stiffened. Although he had an attack-type fourth-ranked divine weapon, his cultivation base wasn't at the Heavenly Dipper realm. He was only at the Yuanfu realm. So what if he had a fourth-ranked divine weapon? Initially, they thought that even if Qin Wentian had set up a 4th-ranked divine inscription, with their 4th-ranked puppets, as well as their attack-type and defensive-type divine weapons, victory was still within their grasp. However, Qin Wentian had also taken out a 4th-ranked puppet, instantly overturning the situation. Boom! Yet another terrifying shockwave rang out as the gigantic sword slashed downwards in a frenzy. Cracks had already appeared on the umbrella-shaped protective screen of light. If this continues on, it will break sooner or later. Old Liang's countenance turned pale. With them in the center, a storm of swords swept over. As long as the protective screen of light shattered, they would all die without a burial ground. Peng Hai, help out. Eccentric Song turned his gaze towards the Heavenly Dipper sovereign inscriptionist who had yet to act. Peng Hai was someone they were extremely fearful of. Even after killing Qin Wentian and obtaining the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, he, the black-faced middle-aged man and old Liang were still prepared to join forces to deal with Peng Hai. But now, they had no choice but to seek help from Peng Hai. However, Peng Hai was still as calm as ever. A long spear appeared in his hands, imbued with a fearsome fiery rune. However, he didn't move, he merely stood there quietly. His eyes were so swollen that it was as though flames were burning within them as he stared at the divine inscription in front of him. Now that the 4th-ranked Sword Tempest divine inscription had completely erupted, this was the best time to see the divine inscription clearly. A crisp sound rang out as the protective screen of the 4th-ranked divine weapon shattered. Cracks also appeared on the umbrella-shaped protective screen. In that instant, Eccentric Song, Old Liang and the black-faced middle-aged man lifted their heads in shock, staring at the young man in the air. Terror could be seen on their faces. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed, and in an instant, the few of them could feel the intense killing intent radiating from Qin Wentian. Get back here. Eccentric Song commanded the puppet to return, but how could Qin Wentian not know what he was thinking? The golden-armored puppet and the Tempest divine inscription flew over, entangling Qin Wentian's puppet. Bzzz, the silhouette of the black-faced middle-aged man flickered as he dashed out. The long spear of darkness in his hands opened up a path, while the black dragon roared as it dashed out, opening up a path for Qin Wentian. However, as the sound of swords whistled through the air, a gigantic sword was embedded into the ground in front of him. The black-faced middle-aged man inclined his head, only to see countless beams of sword light pointing towards him. As long as Qin Wentian waved his hands, he would die without a burial. Little brother Qin, please hold back for now. At this moment, the large-eyed elder's tone of address towards Qin Wentian was much more polite. A 19-year-old 4th-ranked grandmaster, he naturally had to treat Qin Wentian with respect. The three of them all have some status. This man is a guest elder from the Han clan of the Moon Continent. The Han clan's influence in the Moon Continent isn't weak at all. The large-eyed elder reminded Qin Wentian. That's right, if you kill me, the Han clan will definitely not spare you. The black-faced middle-aged man glared at Qin Wentian. How impressive were you earlier, yet now you're using your background. How pitiful. If the Han clan wants to avenge you, I will immediately join a transcendent power. Do you think the Han clan would dare to touch me? Qin Wentian's gaze swept over to the black-faced middle-aged man, causing his countenance to turn even darker. A 19-year-old 4th-ranked grandmaster. As long as news of this spread out, how could a mere Han clan be able to contend against the powers that wanted to recruit Qin Wentian? There are so many treasures here, it's a waste to leave them on the three of you. Why don't you leave them for me? As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, sword chi swept out as a gigantic sword slashed downwards. The black-faced middle-aged man blocked with his spear, colliding head-on with the gigantic sword. Abruptly, a resplendent beam of sword light whizzed past his neck, causing him to feel a chill as a line of blood appeared on his neck. Eccentric Song and Eccentric Liang were both terrified when they saw this scene. Their countenances were as white as a sheet of paper. Qin Wentian had slain the black-faced middle-aged man. A fourth-ranked grandmaster had fallen. Chapter 285. Not long ago, they told Qin Wentian that the Ascendant's ancient scroll was in Qin Wentian's possession. It was a waste of a heavenly treasure. If he didn't hand it over, he would be killed. Right now, Qin Wentian had returned their words to them. The sword chi continued whistling through the air as the black-faced middle-aged man's body was destroyed by that terrifying sword tempest. Qin Wentian waved his hands and an instant later, a divine interspatial ring as well as a long black spear appeared in his hands. He then kept them away. The wealth of a fourth-ranked grandmaster must have been quite bountiful this time around. A cold light flashed past. Qin Wentian glanced at eccentric Song and eccentric Liang, only to see that their countenances were as pale as paper. Eccentric Song squeezed out a smile as he looked at Qin Wentian. Brother Qin's talent is truly shocking. Such a young grandmaster, it's sufficient for your name to shake the entire moon continent. This old man was foolish. If I had offended you in any way, please forgive me. I'm willing to gift a fourth-ranked puppet to Brother Qin as an apology. After which, eccentric Song bowed slightly to Qin Wentian, showing his sincerity. However, Qin Wentian was still coldly staring at him. His gaze was as sharp as the edge of a blade, and the terrifying sword intent he exuded caused the terror in eccentric Song's heart to intensify. This old man and Brother Qin don't have a life-and-death grudge. Why must we fight to the death? Eccentric Song knew that revealing his background wouldn't be enough to intimidate Qin Wentian. Hence, he could only use the promise of benefits as he continued, as long as Brother Qin forgoes this matter, I will definitely not mistreat Brother Qin. Just moments ago, eccentric Song had just threatened to kill Qin Wentian. Yet now, he was saying that he didn't have a life-and-death grudge with Qin Wentian. How laughable. And yet, eccentric Song didn't seem to feel the slightest bit of shame when he spoke. In front of Qin Wentian, the sword tempest manifested, transforming into a terrifying gigantic sword. Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and pointed a finger at eccentric Song. Instantly, a terrifying sword beam slashed through the air, causing eccentric Song's countenance to turn deathly pale. As the sword light swept past, eccentric Song's body was directly split into two. The body of the high-nosed old man Liang trembled violently as he grabbed the umbrella-shaped divine weapon and hurriedly fled from the divine inscription. Qin Wentian did not intend to forgive them at all. This guy wanted to kill them. How could he escape? The sword light slashed down, and his body came to a stop. A bloody light appeared between his brows. Qin Wentian's silhouette descended as he started to collect his spoils of war. 3 fourth-ranked grandmasters, the spoils of war this time around were many times more than his entire fortune. However, just as Qin Wentian was collecting his spoils of war, the earth abruptly trembled. Qin Wentian's eyes turned incomparably sharp. Turning his eyes over, he saw that Peng Hai, who had been observing the divine inscriptions all this while, had finally made his move. Peng Hai's attack was earth-shattering, and wherever his long spear passed by, a piercing sound rang out, causing Qin Wentian's countenance to freeze. A fourth-ranked grandmaster at the Heavenly Dipper realm was indeed far superior to a Yuanfu grandmaster. Wu Xiu's strength was too important. At this moment, Peng Hai acted, ignoring the attacks of the divine inscriptions. Astral nova appeared in his body as an incomparably resplendent long spear appeared, frenziedly sweeping through the divine inscriptions. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the divine inscriptions were shattered, and the sword chi grew weaker and weaker. After waiting for such a long time, he had already thought of a way to neutralize the divine inscriptions. He was just waiting for this moment to strike. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns weren't comparable to Yuanfu grandmasters with fourth-ranked divine weapons. Their astral novas were as fearsome as fourth-ranked divine weapons, capable of breaking through anything. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as the golden-armored puppet whizzed over, standing in front of him. At the same time, he kept the other puppet away. Boom! Another explosive sound rang out as the divine inscriptions were destroyed. Peng Hai's palms trembled as the astral nova spear pierced through the air. Instantly, Qin Wentian felt as though his body was about to be pierced through. This was the power of a mandate. How terrifying was the mandate of a heavenly dipper sovereign. Go! Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he retreated, only to see the golden-armored puppet pouncing over, clashing against the astral nova. The astral nova seemed to have a life of its own, sweeping out in a frenzy, each strike containing an earth-shattering might. The golden-armored puppet grabbed out with its palms, clashing against the astral nova, causing the earth to tremble. Peng Hai's eyes swept over to Qin Wentian, the sharpness of his gaze seemingly capable of penetrating through Qin Wentian. His silhouette flickered with the speed of lightning. A 19-year-old fourth-ranked grandmaster indeed had shocking potential, and there would be countless major powers inviting him to join them. However, once he died, there would be nothing left. Now, Peng Hai wanted to kill Qin Wentian, seizing the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. Qin Wentian, you still have a chance. Bailu Yu indifferently stated, his words causing Qin Wentian's eyes to narrow. Now, Bailu Yu actually wanted to take advantage of him, threatening him to hand over the ancient scroll to his father, Bailu Tong. Great-grandpa. Bailu Yi stared at the large-eyed elder, as a pleading expression appeared on her face. Great Elder, don't you wish for a fifth-ranked grandmaster to appear in our White Deer Institute in the future? I have to obtain the ancient scroll of the Ascendant no matter what, Bailu Tong coldly stated. Bailu Tong, who was at the side, coldly stated. The battle here had attracted the attention of many experts from the White Deer Institute. When they arrived, they immediately asked, what's going on? Qin Wentian, a 19-year-old fourth-ranked grandmaster. He's a good friend of mine, yet Elder Bailu Tong wants to kill him and seize the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, Bailu Yi coldly stated. Bailu Yi spoke, causing the eyes of the crowd to freeze. A 19-year-old fourth-ranked grandmaster. What about the other fourth-ranked grandmasters? Someone asked. They were all killed by Qin Wentian using divine inscriptions, Bailu Yu coldly replied. Bailu Yu coldly replied. Because of Qin Wentian, he and Bailu Yi were now on opposite sides. Father. Bailu Yi turned her gaze to her father. Bailu Shan's countenance flashed with a strange light as he stared ahead. Qin Wentian was still using third-ranked divine inscriptions to defend, yet they were all being destroyed by his opponent. Grandmaster Peng Hai, that's enough. Bailu Shan spoke. After which, he stepped out, whistling through the air. Brother Shan, what are you doing? Bailu Yu's silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Bailu Shan. Bailu Yi's countenance turned pale. She stared at the large-eyed elder, only to hear the latter calmly replying, don't be anxious. How could he not be anxious? Peng Hai wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. He used his astral nova to delay the puppet while he brandished his long spear, dashing towards Qin Wentian. With a flick of his hand, the long spear transformed into a beam of cold light that shot towards Qin Wentian. Bzzz, a raging wind gusted by as a shrill screech rang out. After which, a resplendent lotus flower appeared in front of Qin Wentian, swirling around the long spear. In an instant, the long spear was enveloped within. Behind Qin Wentian, a silhouette appeared. This silhouette had a flawless physique, and was clad in white with a veil covering her face. She exuded an otherworldly aura akin to that of a celestial fairy. Her silhouette stood in front of Qin Wentian. A gentle smile flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as he stared at the silhouette. She always appeared at the most crucial moment, silently protecting him, as though she was omnipresent. I'll get the puppet to help you kill this person. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered with sharpness as he stared at Peng Hai. This person's combat prowess isn't high, I can deal with him. Qin Er's voice was clear and melodious. Although her words were cold, they caused Qin Wentian to feel extremely comfortable when he heard them. Peng Hai's countenance stiffened as his countenance turned extremely unsightly. Those from the White Deer Institute also had looks of bewilderment on their faces. There was actually a Heavenly Dipper sovereign protecting Qin Wentian. Not only that, this Heavenly Dipper sovereign was an extremely beautiful woman, akin to a celestial maiden from a painting. Their gazes involuntarily shifted onto Bai Lui, only to see that even she had a puzzled expression on her face. Qin Wentian had said that he and Imo Qingcheng were lovers. In that case, who was this celestial maiden in front of them? He remembered that she had appeared once before. Peng Hai's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He glanced at Qin before shifting his gaze onto the experts from the White Deer Institute. He knew that the matter today was already destined to fail. Farewell. His long spear astral nova whistled in rage as his silhouette flickered as he departed. Qin still stood there quietly and didn't give chase. Qin Wentian cast a glance at Qin as he smiled. He didn't say anything, nor did he ask any questions. However, Qin's beautiful eyes flickered, as though she could read Qin Wentian's thoughts. After which, her lips trembled as her voice transformed into strands of silk, drifting into Qin Wentian's ears. He won't be able to escape. The people from the Celestial Lake Palace are right outside. Today, no one will dare to touch you. Qin's voice directly entered Qin Wentian's ears, causing Qin Wentian to freeze. The people from the Celestial Lake Palace had arrived. This caused an expression of bewilderment to appear on Qin Wentian's face. Why would the people from the Celestial Lake Palace appear at this time? Sweeping his gaze across the crowd from the White Deer Institute, he saw Di Cheng, as well as a young man with an extraordinary demeanor. At this moment, Qin Wentian finally understood. So it turned out that Fairy Qingmei had always been paying attention to him. As the lover of the Azure Emperor, Fairy Qingmei should know many secrets that others didn't. Everything that happened in the White Deer Institute, including the arrival of Di Feng, as well as the difficulties he was facing, were all known to her. At this moment, Qin Wentian understood that the relationship between Fairy Qingmei and the Azure Emperor wasn't as rumored. On the contrary, no one cared more about the Azure Emperor than she did. Even if he was the successor of the Azure Emperor, because he had obtained the Azure Emperor token, Fairy Qingmei would support him unconditionally, only acknowledging him as the successor. They came at the right time. A smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. Earlier, he had displayed his talent as a fourth-ranked Grandmaster, in addition to Fairy Qingmei's support. In this case, no matter who stood behind Di Feng, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. I bid my farewell as well. Grandmaster Fenrir knew that this wasn't the time for him to stay. Clasping his hands to the crowd, he departed the area. As for those who came with the fourth-ranked Grandmasters, they had long since fled with their tails between their legs. It was as though they were afraid that if they were a step slower, they would be killed by Qin Wentian. Not long after, other than those from the White Deer Institute, only Qin Wentian and Qin remained. Fourth-ranked Grandmaster. Bai Luyu suddenly laughed coldly, as he stared at the crowd from the White Deer Institute. Everyone, this young man came to our White Deer Institute to study divine inscriptions. In fact, he already has an extremely high level of attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions. Not only that, he even has a Heavenly Dipper sovereign following him. I'm afraid that he has some ulterior motives. My heart won't die. Qin Wentian silently mused as he glanced at Bai Luyu. Chapter 286. Qin Wentian laughed. I came to the White Deer Institute to study divine inscriptions and became friends with Little E. I've never done anything to offend the White Deer Institute, yet you're accusing me of something I don't deserve. How laughable. If you're greedy for my treasures, just say it. There's no need to be so hypocritical. Bai Luyu narrowed his eyes. If he allowed Qin Wentian to leave the White Deer Institute today, he would never be able to obtain the ancient scroll ever again. Seeing that more and more experts from the White Deer Institute had gathered here, Bai Lu Tong finally spoke, "Everyone, let's discuss how we should handle this matter. I, Bai Lu Tong, have immersed myself in the Tao of divine inscriptions for many years, and my attainments in it aren't weak. If I can obtain the ancient scroll, I might have a chance to break through to the 5th ranked. The value of a 5th ranked divine inscriptionist, I'm sure all of you can understand. Qin Wentian isn't even 19 yet, he's already a 4th ranked divine inscriptionist. Not only that, he's a good friend of mine. Why must the White Deer Institute do such a despicable thing? Compared to you, Elder Bai Lu Tong, he has a higher chance of breaking through to the 5th ranked, Bai Lu Yi retorted. Impudent, little E, although the elders of the White Deer Institute regard you highly, you have no right to talk back to them like this, Bai Lu Yi berated. Not only that, even if he has a higher chance, he's still an outsider. There are some words that I have no choice but to say. Bai Lu Yi knew that Qin Wentian was the holder of the Azure Emperor token. She didn't know what would happen if the elders of the White Deer Institute treated him like this. Uncle Yu, bring them away and guard the back mountain. Don't let anyone near, Bai Lu Yi commanded to an old man who was extremely loyal to the White Deer Institute. Uncle Yu understood Bai Lu Yi's meaning, and with a wave of his hands, he brought those who weren't core members away. Do the two of you want to leave? Bai Lu Yi asked Di Feng. Little E, Di Feng is an esteemed guest of our White Deer Institute. There's no need to hide this, Bai Lu Tong replied. I, Di Feng, guarantee that Miss Yi's words will never be leaked. Di Feng smiled. Bai Lu Yi stared at him, before turning her gaze onto those from the White Deer Institute. She coldly laughed, there are some words I have to say today. Elder Tong, you should ask yourself, in terms of attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions, whose talent is higher? Bai Lu Tong stared at Bai Lu Yi, he didn't reply, only to hear an elder interjecting, although Elder Tong's attainments are high, his talent might not be higher than Little Yi's. In that case, if the White Deer Institute possesses the inheritance of the Ascendant, who do you all think would have the highest chance of becoming a 5th ranked divine inscriptionist? Bai Lu Yi asked again, her words causing expressions of bewilderment to appear on the faces of the crowd. Bai Lu Shan's eyes brightened. From Bai Lu Yi's words, it seemed that she had a chance to obtain the Ascendant's inheritance. That's right, his daughter had a close relationship with Qin Wentian. Share it, Bai Lu Tong coldly stated. What a joke. Even if Qin Wentian obtained the Ascendant's inheritance, it belongs to him. You want to share it? Bai Lu Yi coldly laughed. Today, I'll tell all the elders that Qin Wentian has indeed obtained the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, and in the future, he will definitely become a 5th ranked divine inscriptionist. Other than this, Qin Wentian has already given the ancient scroll to me. The countenances of the crowd froze. Qin Wentian had given the ancient scroll to Bai Lu Yi. It seemed like the two of them were really lovers. Not only that, Qin Wentian treated Bai Lu Yi so well. A smile broke out on Bai Lu Shan's face. If this was the case, there was no need to doubt his choice. He would unconditionally stand on Qin Wentian's side. Bai Lu Yi's grandfather, one of the 9 elders of the White Deer Institute, also stroked his beard and laughed. The more he looked at Qin Wentian, the more he liked him. A 19-year-old 4th ranked grandmaster. He was naturally more inclined to befriend Qin Wentian. It was only because the ancient scroll of the Ascendant was too valuable that Bai Lu Tong's heart was filled with greed. This was why he wanted to kill Qin Wentian and seize the ancient scroll. If not, such a thing wouldn't have happened, and they would still protect Qin Wentian. Elders, please consider this carefully. If Elder Bai Lu Tong acted against Qin Wentian, I, Bai Lu Yi, wouldn't have the face to remain in the White Deer Institute. The White Deer Institute would lose 2 5th ranked grandmasters, Bai Lu Yi stated. Momentarily, Bai Lu Tong's countenance turned exceptionally unsightly to behold. For the sake of the ancient scroll, even if Bai Lu Yi was a member of the White Deer Institute, he could still disown her. Little E, are you threatening the White Deer Institute? Bai Lu Tong coldly retorted. Not only that, as a junior, since you obtained the ancient scroll, why didn't you hand it over to your elders? Is this something a junior should do? Today, I've finally seen through Elder Tong. Coveting the ancient scroll of others, yet still acting so righteously. Why should I hand it over to you? Bai Lu E mocked. After which, she turned her gaze onto the others. Elders, please decide. Elder Tong, you've gone too far. Bai Lu Yi's grandfather was naturally on his granddaughter's side. There's no need to argue any further, it's simply too embarrassing. The large-eyed elder couldn't help but berate when he saw this scene. After which, he turned to Qin Wentian, little brother Qin, as a guest of Little E, the White Deer Institute has offended us today. Please don't take offense. When those grandmasters came to demand the ancient scroll of the Ascendant, not only did our White Deer Institute not stop them, you even took the side of the evildoers. As the great elder, I didn't intervene in time. This is my mistake. The great elder personally admitted his mistake, causing the others to shut their mouths. They instantly understood what was going on today. As a grandmaster, Bai Lu Tong coveted the ancient scroll of the Ascendant in Qin Wentian's hands. But because of Bai Lu Yi, he didn't directly deal with Qin Wentian. Instead, he wanted to use the other grandmasters to pressure Qin Wentian so that Qin Wentian would obediently hand over the ancient scroll of the Ascendant in exchange for the protection of the White Deer Institute. Those fourth-ranked grandmasters could naturally see through Bai Lu Tong's intentions. But the temptation of the ancient scroll of the Ascendant was simply too great. Hence, they couldn't bear to give it up. However, nobody could have imagined the ending. Qin Wentian continued to use his trump cards. Fourth-ranked divine inscriptions, fourth-ranked puppets, and even heavenly dipper sovereigns. With the deaths of those fourth-ranked grandmasters, Bai Lu Tong's plans were all for naught. Hence, he decided to use the White Deer Institute to pressure Qin Wentian, forcing him to hand over the ancient scroll of the Ascendant. However, he had already offended Bai Lu Yi, who was on good terms with Qin Wentian. Hence, the current situation arose. Bai Lu Tong was still unwilling to give up, but the large-eyed elder and the others didn't agree. Qin Wentian could see the sincerity in the large-eyed elder's words, and he knew that this elder had a good impression of him. Hence, he smiled. This matter was done by Bai Lu Tong alone, it has nothing to do with the White Deer Institute. I, Qin, am naturally clear about this. Since the large-eyed elder took the initiative to form a good relationship with him, he naturally wouldn't fall out with the power he wanted to control. Good, good, it's rare for you to be so magnanimous. The large-eyed elder smiled and nodded. In truth, he hadn't acted before because he wanted to see if Qin Wentian could handle the situation himself. If Bai Lu Tong really wanted to kill Qin Wentian, he would still act to stop him. Grand Elder, this matter isn't something you can decide alone. I will report this to the elders and let them decide. At this moment, the previously silent Bai Lu Tong spoke again, his words causing the countenances of the crowd to sink as they bitterly smiled in their hearts. The situation was getting more and more strained, causing the internal factions of the White Deer Institute to split. Such a situation was something nobody wanted to see. Regardless of the Grand Elder's side or Bai Lu Tong's side, they all represented a portion of the White Deer Institute's power. The reason why Bai Lu Tong had such confidence was because his father was one of the 4 elders, and was in charge of the Institute's divine inscriptionists. His status was extremely important, and he was extremely protective of his own people. The large-eyed elder's countenance turned extremely unsightly when he heard Bai Lu Tong's words. How embarrassing! Because of greed, the internal factions of the White Deer Institute were divided. This was something he had never expected, and didn't want to see. Since you have the ancient scroll, why don't you take it out and share it with us? From afar, a voice drifted over, causing the hearts of many to involuntarily tremble. The Supreme Elder had spoken. The crowd all had their own thoughts. This Supreme Elder definitely wanted to share the ancient scroll with the most powerful grandmasters of the White Deer Institute. For the sake of the Institute's benefits, he wasn't wrong in doing so. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the horizon. It seemed like there was an elder supporting Bai Lu Tong. Now that he had become a fourth-ranked grandmaster, the attitude of the Supreme Elder was still the same. Evidently, it was because he, Qin Wentian, was an outsider. Luckily, he didn't take out the Azure Emperor token back then. If not, he didn't know what the White Deer Institute's attitude would be like. As an outsider, I also feel that Qin Wentian should share the ancient scroll with us. In return, the White Deer Institute can guarantee his safety, Di Feng spoke, causing a smile to appear on Bai Lu Tong's face. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over to Di Feng as he coldly laughed, "How fair. Who are you? Do I need you to interfere in my affairs? I'm someone you can't afford to offend." Di Cheng, who was standing beside Di Feng, coldly replied. "Just a fourth-ranked grandmaster, he can easily crush you to death." How arrogant. Descendant of the Azure Emperor, from the Supreme Di clan. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the crowd couldn't help but be shocked. Their incomparably sharp gazes stared at Qin Wentian. This was the greatest secret of the White Deer Institute, yet Qin Wentian actually knew about it. The gazes of the crowd involuntarily turned to Bai Lu Yi. Even the elders of Bai Lu Yi were blaming her for not knowing the gravity of the situation. Traitorous bastard. Bai Lu Yi mocked. After which, he took a step forward. "In that case, you deserve to die even more." This Qin Wentian had really given him a good excuse to act. Qin Wentian was truly courting death. Bai Lu Yi stared at Qin Wentian in astonishment. The voice of the Azure faction sounded out. Was Qin Wentian planning to lay all his cards on the table? Damn it all. Di Cheng coldly laughed. Today, Qin Wentian would die for sure. Everyone should have seen it for yourself. Those from the Supreme Di clan also want him dead. Bai Lu Yu stared at the crowd. Upon hearing his words, Qin Wentian laughed. "Why do you respect the descendants of the Azure Emperor so much? The White Deer Institute is the descendant of the Azure Emperor. Didn't Bai Lu Yi tell you this?" Bai Lu Yu coldly laughed. "If the successor of the Azure Emperor wants you to die, would you die?" Qin Wentian looked at Bai Lu Yu with a mocking expression. "If that's even possible." Bai Lu Yu laughed. Right now, he wanted to use this opportunity to express his support for Di Feng. In that case, Di Feng would stand on his side today. Oh. Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head. "In that case, you can go and die now." After speaking, Qin Wentian stared at the horizon as he spoke. Qin Wentian requests an audience with the Supreme Elders of the White Deer Institute. His voice rumbled and spread far into the distance. In the void, there were many responses. How arrogant. Do you think the Supreme Elders are people you can meet just because you say so? Bai Lu Yu coldly laughed. You are still not qualified. Di Cheng's hatred for Qin Wentian had been ignited ever since he was humiliated. And now, this fellow was finally going to die. Qin Wentian laughed. After which, he stretched out his palm as he icily stated, "How about this?" Humph! Expressions of disdain flashed on the faces of the crowd as they turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian's palm. After which, they froze as they stared intently at it. In the next instant, their eyes froze as their hearts pounded violently. The large-eyed elder stared at the gigantic word, his heart pounding. That was, the word, Azure. Di Feng's eyes gleamed with sharpness as his heart pounded. In Qin Wentian's hands, was the Azure Emperor token. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over to Bai Lu Tong, Di Cheng, and the rest as he enunciated each word slowly. I, Qin Wentian, am the true successor of the Azure Emperor. As the sound of his voice faded, the hearts of those in the crowd all trembled violently. The Azure Emperor token, that was the Azure Emperor token. Di Feng was only a descendant of the Supreme Di clan. He, Qin Wentian, was the one who held the Azure Emperor token in his hands. He was the true successor of the Azure Emperor. Chapter 287. The Azure Emperor Token. Qin Wentian, he actually had the Azure Emperor token in his hands. This indicated that Qin Wentian was the true successor of the Azure Emperor. Those from the Di clan, as well as the direct descendants of the White Deer Institute, naturally understood the significance of the Azure Emperor token. With the Azure Emperor token, one could command the hidden Azure faction. Everyone should understand my purpose for coming to the White Deer Institute, right? Qin Wentian coldly laughed as he stared at Bai Luyu. Sinister intentions. With the Azure Emperor token in his hands, he could already command the entire White Deer Institute. What sinister intentions? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Di Cheng, only to see the coldness in Di Cheng's eyes. How could this be? How could the Azure Emperor token be in the hands of Qin Wentian? So easily squashed me to death. A mere descendant of the Di clan dares to speak to me in such a manner. Even the old ancestor of your Di clan wouldn't dare to say such words in front of me. Insubordination, what punishment do you deserve? Qin Wentian abruptly berated. His gaze swept over, causing Di Cheng to feel an immense pressure bearing down on him, causing his state of mind to waver. Insubordination, what punishment do you deserve? He, Di Cheng, was only a junior of the Di clan, while Qin Wentian had the Azure Emperor token in his possession. His actions could be considered as insubordination. Even if the elders of the Di clan were to meet the owner of the Azure Emperor token, they would still have to respect him and obey his commands. The large-eyed elder drew in a deep breath. Di Feng's performance in coming to the White Deer Institute had led them to believe that Di Feng would be the successor of the Di clan, and that in the future, he would become the leader of the Azure Emperor. However, he had never imagined that the person who took out the Azure Emperor token would be none other than Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, a 19-year-old fourth-ranked Grandmaster, came to the White Deer Institute because he was the true successor of the Azure Emperor. Before this, Qin Wentian had been enduring silently because he wasn't sure of the attitude of the White Deer Institute. Hence, he didn't take out the Azure Emperor token recklessly. But now, he finally couldn't endure any longer. Because the White Deer Institute and the Supreme Di clan actually wanted to kill him, the successor of the Azure Emperor. It seemed like a drama, but it was actually happening. His gaze involuntarily shifted to Bai Luyi. Bai Luyi was the only one who wasn't shocked. Most probably, Qin Wentian had already told her everything. Because of their special relationship, Bai Luyi would never betray Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian had absolute trust in Xiao Yi. After all, this identity was too sensitive. The large-eyed elder glanced at Di Feng and the rest, feeling a headache coming on. Everything that had happened today had completely exceeded his expectations. Right now, it was no longer just a matter of the Ascendant's ancient scroll, it concerned the future of the White Deer Institute. Would the White Deer Institute listen to the commands of the descendant of the Azure Emperor? If they obeyed, should they obey Qin Wentian who had the Azure Emperor token, or should they obey Di Feng, the successor of the Di clan? All of these were extremely difficult problems. Di Feng was ranked number 5 in the Heavenly Fate rankings. If it was in the past, it would be extremely difficult for Qin Wentian to compete with him. But now, Qin Wentian was a 19-year-old fourth-ranked Grandmaster. Just based on talent alone, both of them were extremely outstanding. Di Feng's advantage was that he had the support of the Di clan. As for Qin Wentian, he was even younger. Nobody knew how far he would go in the future in terms of divine inscriptions and martial Dao. But without a doubt, his potential was extremely terrifying. If not, how could Qin Wentian have obtained the Azure Emperor token? This meant that Qin Wentian had already passed the test left behind by the Azure Emperor. That was why he was chosen to be the successor. Let me verify the authenticity of the Azure Emperor token, Di Qing stated. He had no way to accept the fact that Qin Wentian had the Azure Emperor token in his hands. Who do you think you are? Do you even have the qualifications to touch the Azure Emperor token? Qin Wentian retorted. DE of my D clan was captured by the 9 Mystical Palace, and the Azure Emperor token has gone missing. But now, it's actually in your hands. This can't help but cause me to suspect if you are someone from the 9 Mystical Palace. Although Di Qing wasn't as outstanding as Di Feng, he was extremely intelligent and had many schemes up his sleeves. He naturally knew that his D clan wanted to take over the Azure Emperor Palace. If not, he wouldn't have allowed Di Feng to stay in the White Deer Institute for such a long time. Now that Qin Wentian had appeared with the Azure Emperor token in his hands, it was equivalent to spoiling their plans. This was unacceptable. Qin Wentian and a Heavenly Dipper sovereign were far from enough to protect the Azure Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian laughed as he kept the Azure Emperor token. After which, he stated, "Elders of the White Deer Institute, do you still want to watch the show? Isn't it about time for you all to come out?" As the sound of his voice faded, not a single person appeared. This caused Qin Wentian to understand how difficult it was to completely control a power that had been passed down for thousands of years. The other party was obviously doing this to show him. Leaving aside the fact that the situation was still unclear, even if the White Deer Institute had acknowledged his identity, if they didn't listen to him, Qin Wentian, what could he, Qin Wentian, do? A power that had been passed down for thousands of years, how could the White Deer Institute give up their authority to a 19-year-old Wuxia? Not only that, they had to take the risk. Even if Di Feng had the support of the D clan behind him, he still hadn't obtained the full approval of the White Deer Institute. They could only say that they respected Di Feng enough. At this moment, even though the elders of the White Deer Institute knew what was happening, they still refused to show themselves. They wanted to see how things would be handled. "You better explain your identity first," Bailu Tong coldly stated. "That's right, the Azure Emperor token. Let us see if it's real or fake." Bailu Yu coldly laughed. "You guys are too impudent." Bailu Yi didn't expect Bailu Tong and the others to be so difficult to deal with. Even after Qin Wentian had taken out the Azure Emperor token, they still ignored him. Not only that, the attitude of the elders also made Bailu Yi understand that Qin Wentian was still a lone wolf. The elders of the White Deer Institute didn't give him enough respect. Even if Qin Wentian had extraordinary talent, it didn't mean that the White Deer Institute would hand over all authority to Qin Wentian just because Qin Wentian had talent. This concerned the future of the White Deer Institute, and although Bailu Yi understood, she still felt extremely uncomfortable. At the very least, they should be more respectful towards Qin Wentian, right? Don't forget, earlier you said that you could die. Now, I want you to die. Qin Wentian glared at Bailu Yu, yet Bailu Yu only laughed maniacally. "Ridiculous, you haven't even proven your identity and you already want me to die. Seems like if I don't take a closer look at the secrets within your interspatial ring, I won't be able to do anything." Qin stepped forwards, standing in front of Qin Wentian, while Bailu Tong also took a step forward. I want to take a look as well." Di Qing coldly laughed. Unknowingly, an old protector had appeared behind him. This old protector was also a Heavenly Dipper sovereign, and he stepped out together with Di Qing. At the same time, outside of the White Deer Institute, in the skies far away, a few gigantic demonic beasts could be seen hovering in the air. On the back of one of the demonic beasts, a demonic middle-aged man could be seen. The eyes of this middle-aged man shone with a demonic light, shining with a golden light that seemed to penetrate through space. Everything that happened on the grassy plains of the White Deer Institute appeared in front of him. After that, it transformed into a screen of light that was imprinted in the eyes of the demonic beasts and the people here. How impudent. It's been a few thousand years, yet these people have already forgotten the respect they should have for the Azure Emperor. Upon seeing the Azure Emperor token, not a single one of them had the slightest bit of respect. An old woman with a snake staff in her hand stared at the scene in front of her, as a baleful aura emanated from her. At the feet of the old woman, there was a corpse. If Qin Wentian was here, he would have instantly recognized it. This corpse was none other than the fourth-ranked inscriptionist grandmaster who had escaped earlier. Now, he was already a dead man. Indeed, they are too impudent. Not only did they not respect the Azure Emperor, they even dared to threaten him with words and even wanted to use violence. A skinny old man beside the old woman coldly spoke, his eyes flashing with a demonic light. Hee hee. A seductive laughter rang out as a sexy woman giggled. Not only that, those old fellows are still pretending to be oblivious, they haven't even come out yet. Do they want to see young Master Qin handle this yourself? Since those old fellows don't want to come out, why don't you guys handle it for them? At this moment, a middle-aged woman exuded an aura of coldness. As the sound of her voice faded, those demonic humans all started laughing. A raging wind gusted by as demonic beasts soared through the air. That demonic middle-aged man retracted his demonic eyes, and all of them sped towards that direction. At the same time, on the grassy plains, several silhouettes walked towards Qin Wentian, exuding a domineering aura. The supreme elders of the White Deer Institute still hadn't appeared, they were probably still waiting to see how things would develop. Although they wouldn't allow anything to happen to Qin Wentian, if they did so, it would still be extremely disrespectful to Qin Wentian, the successor of the Azure Emperor. Di Cheng and Bai Lu Yu walked towards Qin Wentian, while Qin and the golden-armored puppet appeared in front of Qin Wentian. Bai Lu Tong and Di Cheng's guards also took a few steps forwards. Successor of the Azure Emperor? I really want to take a good look. Di Cheng coldly laughed. You guys won't have the chance to see. At this moment, a voice drifted over from the air, causing the crowd to be startled. Inclining their heads, they stared in the direction of the voice, only to see a terrifying demonic chi drifting over. Who's there? At this moment, a few old men descended from the skies, and 3 of them appeared consecutively. These 3 old men were all supreme elders of the White Deer Institute. Only now did they discover that there were actually people spying on the White Deer Institute. It was just that the distance between them was too great, and they actually couldn't sense it. A raging wind gusted by as the silhouettes of terrifying demonic beasts floated in the air. Numerous demonic beasts stared coldly at the supreme elders of the White Deer Institute, and one of them coldly stated, "It's too late to come out now. We will handle this matter on behalf of the White Deer Institute." Who are you, and what do you mean by that? One of the supreme elders froze as he coldly asked. The old granny with the snake staff in her hands stared at him as she icily replied, "You don't need to care about who I am. As for what I mean, these 4 people offended their superiors, offending the Azure Emperor token, and disrespecting the successor of the Azure Emperor. Kill them without mercy." As the sound of the old granny's voice faded, a cold intent gushed forth, enveloping Di Cheng, Bai Lu Yu, Bai Lu Tong, as well as Di Cheng's guards. The cold eyes of the old granny caused an intense fear to blossom in their hearts. These people were here to protect Qin Wentian. They wanted to kill them all. Don't you dare. The clan elder roared angrily. These people wanted to kill him, and his children were among them. The demonic light in the old granny's eyes was akin to that of a venomous viper. Since the White Deer Institute dares to defy the Azure Emperor's orders, protecting those who offended their superiors, there's no longer a need for the Azure faction to exist. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.